I don't give a shit about saving. I don't give a shit about spending. I care about fulfillment and thriving.
We have all learned to focus on saving your money for your golden years. But our next guest says, actually do the opposite.
I've read your book probably 5 to 6 times because I am the exact opposite.
You're afraid of running out of money. I'm afraid of wasting my life. You are living in fear of something in the future and robbing yourself of your current life. Delayed gratification indefinitely is no gratification. And unfortunately, your body has a vote and it's going to decay. And you will not be able to get that gratification to the extent you can now.
I mean, Google lists your net worth at over $100 million. So some people are going to comment that it's not just that easy.
For those who are have average intelligence and lots of hustle, there's so many ways to make money.
What's your advice to people with a low income?
Like if you're very poor, the first step you're trying to do is
Bill Perkins,
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on the Iced Coffee Hour.
it's good to be on.
We have 2 lives, and the second one begins when we realize we only have one. What does this quote mean to you?
It means that I think a lot of people behave as if they're going to live forever or they're going to get a second life, like in video games. And when you realize that you only have one life, one ride on this planet, you begin to take it a little bit more seriously. You begin to care a little bit less about what other people think. And you begin to dive deep and chase after what you really want out of this ride.
It's interesting because I've read your book probably 5 to 6 times in total. It's the one book that people keep telling me to read through because I am the exact opposite of everything that you describe in the book. I'm extremely frugal. I like saving money at all costs. And I like delaying gratification. For me, I get a lot of peace of mind knowing that 30 years from now, I'll have enough versus living it up today.
Right. But is that a fear-based thinking or is that an optimized for fulfillment type thinking?
I would say probably 80% fear, 20% optimization.
Right. And so fear is a great thing that we have, right? It keeps us alive. It keeps us from eating bears or lions on the Serengeti when we were in tribe, right? And it prevents you from getting mugged or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't help you thrive. It only helps you survive. And you're surviving, right? But you're not thriving. And you're not thriving in probably one of the best periods of your life where you have your health and the ability to take advantage of everything that's around you. Whether you want to go heli skiing, swimming, etc., your health is not going to limit you. Your mental acuity is not going to limit you. If you wanted to go to school or college or spend money on that, your lung capacity isn't going to limit you. And so you are living in fear of something in the future and robbing yourself of your current life.
Your life has led you to have this very interesting philosophy around why you should spend money while you're young,
Right.
instead of saving for the delayed gratification. For those unfamiliar, how did you make your money?
I started making money as a broker of commodities and then really made significant amounts of capital as a commodities trader in natural gas. And so that's where the money came from.
How do you learn how to do that? How do you learn how to trade natural gas and profit from it?
I think you have to be a person that is, unafraid of risk, has kind of like a stoic attitude about things in order to take the losses and the stress associated with it. I think most people have the intelligence to be a trader, but they don't have the mental fortitude to be a trader. And then you just have to want it. And so what I wanted, to shorten the story, is essentially to be able to exchange a few hours of my time for a lot of hours of everybody else's time, right? That's what money represents, is your time, right? You spend time doing something and you acquire this thing called money, which is fungible for other people's time, right? And their goods and services. And so I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be rich. I wanted to chase the girls. I wanted to, live the rock star life. That's what a young me, those are kind of the goals, right? Like on autopilot, right? Of what do I think I want out of life? But I didn't want to have to choose or be frugal or not buy Starbucks. I wanted to not even care what the price was. I wanted to have enough resources to exceed my wants.
And so in that case, are you trading your own money or are you working for a firm that gives you capital and you're trading that capital and getting a percentage of the upside?
Both. I rent out my brain and I get a percentage of the money that I make for other people. So some people, they rent out their bodies, they do manual labor. I'm a mental.
But what set you apart that you were so profitable at doing this? Like, why were you different than everyone else who's tried doing this and failed?
I think it's a curiosity and stoicism. So the ability to handle losses and still be able to think through things basically gives you an edge. And that's not necessarily in trading. That's in life and romantic relationships, et cetera. When things are going wrong in a romantic relationship, the person that's like going crazy or things are really bad in a relationship will have reactions that are not necessarily helpful. Mm-hmm. And those things add up. And a person is a little bit calmer, will think through things, try to come to resolution, will do things that are accretive to the relationship or healing to the relationship. And so that's huge in any field. The other thing is just being very curious and dedicated to it. So you're very good at what you guys do here. You spend a lot of time and effort. You're curious. You're looking at how other people do things. You're incorporating things at work. You're experimenting. You just become better at something.
How did you cultivate this stoicism? Because for me right now, like it's easy to be stoic when things are good, but right now with like the tariffs and this and that, and I see my portfolio, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just
he refuses
awful.
to even open
I don't
his
look
account
at
anymore.
my account because I've realized that that's the best way that I can remain stoic in times like this. But if I do check it, I can notice myself getting a little bit emotionally connected to the outcome. And I know that's like for an investor, not what you should want. You kind of just have a method and tried and true method. How did you cultivate this stoicism?
I think one, it's training, just reading books, The Daily Stoic, looking at the quotes, et cetera, just kind of like repeating that, but also losing the ego attachment to the result and learning to enjoy the ride and the process and just kind of sticking with that and being okay with being broke or looking like an idiot or looking like a fool. And so I kind of developed that over time. You know, I was kind of trained in that as a kid in the environment I was in. And so you just learn not to care what other people think, including yourself. And then you're just kind of detached from all this like fear.
What do you mean trained as a kid? Like, how were you?
I think, I'm an old guy, right? I was born in 1969. And I'm like post-civil rights kid where the world was a lot different place growing up. And so there was overt racism, like TV shows and stuff that was going on then, right, would just be completely banned or shut out right now. And when, I say this, like when people have kind of like this idea of who you are, let's say you're racist against Indians or blacks or whatever, right? You learn to know that that's not true. I can either accept that and adopt that attitude or not give a fuck what other people think. Now, little did I know at that time, right, that I was being trained to not give a fuck what people think, right? At all, right? Because it doesn't matter what you do or what you say, or, I don't need to prove myself to these other people, right? They have their opinions and that's on them, right? And you read books like Don't Take It Personal, that kind of quote out of The Four Agreements, one of my favorite books of all time. If anybody asks me, what's the best book on trading? I go, The Four Agreements. What's the best book on this? The Four Agreements. That is a superpower. The don't give a type of people. I don't care what other people think, including yourself, because a lot of the negative talk that people have comes from themselves.
So how did you actually go and make changes from what you were reading, though? Because a lot of people, they face adversity like that, or just adversity in general, and it spins them down the negative consequence, that sort of life, rather than taking it and turning it into a positive. Like, what made you any different?
Nobody learns piano overnight, right? So if I say, hey, it'll be really great if you ever play piano, and you're like, yeah, I really want to learn piano. This is great. And I come back the next day, I'm like, you're banging on the piano. I'm like, this is terrible, right? Like, you're not going to learn life. I come back in a week, you still have it. In a month, still haven't learned it. But if you keep at it, right, over the course of a year, you're going to be like, holy shit, this guy can play piano and he's pretty good. And so I say that to realize that whatever behavior you're trying to acquire, whatever mindset you're trying to acquire, you're not going to learn it overnight, right? Like, these habits take time and you have to stick with it. And so when you say, like, how do you acquire it? It's just practice, practice, practice.
So despite all of your challenges and adversity, I mean, Google lists your net worth at over $100 million. And I just have to ask, like, are these Google estimates based in any sort of reality?
Not really. I mean, you can influence what the estimate is. You kind of don't want your net worth out there. Has it been north of $100 million? Yes, it has been.
Has it been? But with these tariffs recently,
it's going down.
Things have been than that.
Yeah. I get smashed on days just like everybody else, right? Like, it's going up and down. I'm like, oh, I have to spend less this year, or maybe a lot less from the next 5 years. Or I get to spend more. over the next 5 years or next year,
What's interesting is in your book, you say that you have to pick a time in your life where you want your net worth to be at its peak.
Correct.
And then after that, then your net worth should decline as you age, which is completely counterintuitive to a lot of people. They're like, you should always be growing. And as you're growing, you can always just continue scraping a little bit more off the top.
Mhm.
What was your age that you picked that you wanted your net worth to be at its peak?
It's right about now. Right about now. And so that can change, right? Because it's your biological age, right? Like at the end, like if we could just do this simply, like the day before you died, you don't want your net worth going up, right? You want to spend everything you got. But unfortunately, your body decays. It doesn't just die, right? And so long before that, you'll be doing less things and have less use for money, right?
So in terms of your net worth, was this intentional to pick right now, or was this because the market was going up so rapidly that you couldn't spend?
Has nothing to do with market. It has to do with your biological age and your body decaying.
So how do you test this? Like, what markers do you look for?
This is one of the hardest parts. Like this is reasons why it's not a strict formula. You have to understand. Like there are people smoking, heavily overweight, etc. at 40 who should be spending like rock stars, right? And there are people who are 5 years older than me who are like, hey, you're actually still on plateau, right? Like they're running Ironmans, they're running marathons. There's like they have the body of a 30-year-old, right? And they're able to do all the things, right? And so it's really based on like, how are my knees functioning? What's my lung function? Do I have cardiovascular disease? What's my lung capacity? What's my VO2 max? Am I able to go to Paris and walk 7 miles and really enjoy Paris? Or am I going to walk 1 mile? My mom, it's like, it's a lot of people have parents where it's hard to even get them on a plane for 10 hours. They don't need any money for traveling, do they? Right? Do they need that international ticket? No. Do they, so you can see the utility, their ability to convert their money into experiences or into fulfillment declines as you age, right? I'm just giving you a couple of examples.
Mm-hmm.
And that really depends on your biological age, not just the numerical year you were born. And so a lot of that is just, there's this whole quantified self crowd that, optimize for health, like the Gary Breckers and Peter Attia's and Hubermans of the world, et cetera, which Peter Attia is my doctor. We do all the stats, et cetera. And I'm like, okay, I'm a bad boy. Yes, I should be doing more cardio. But given where I am, this is kind of the things I'll be able to do over the course of my life. And this is what the last 10 years of my life is going to look like.
So based on that, how long are you expected to live for?
I think I'm a 76 to 84 guy. 84 is probably what the charts would say.
I've heard for anyone who's under the age of 50 now that they could live past 100 with modern technology.
AI and medicine merging. And
yeah, could. And everybody with a biology textbook could get an A in biology, but that's not how it goes, does it? You know what I mean? Like these coulds are just like what is achievable, not what human beings do, right? It's like, oh, why do some people get A's and why do some people flunk out, right? Like they just don't.
Sure.
They're out of compliance, right? They don't do their homework. They have other priorities, et cetera.
Well, regardless of whatever Google says, you've done really well for yourself.
Correct.
Made a great living. When did you first become rich versus when did you start to feel rich?
I felt rich before I became rich. And I think it was around 25 when,
Is when you started feeling rich?
Oh, no, before that, like 22. As soon as I made more money than my mom, it was like the best day of my life.
You felt completely
Oh, my gosh. You couldn't have told me. I was like,
what sort of lifestyle? What sort of lifestyle?
And the funny thing is, I was still living at home with my mom, not paying rent. I was just about to move out to the pizza oven that I lived in with Jason Rufo.
Do you think you felt richer then or now?
Then, I mean, just the feeling of just the upward trajectory, the rate of change in my life was just so great, and going from straight broke to like $50-something thousand dollars.
So that's how much you made.
Something 40, 50, whatever the number is. I was like, oh, I'm a buppy. That stands for Black Urban Professional for those people who don't know.
Yeah,
There's yuppies and buppies. And I was just ecstatic. I had extra discretionary income. I could take a girl on a date. I could pay for it was the best feeling. I think it was like late 20s, 28, 29. I was rich. Millionaire.
So you made millions between the ages of 22 and 29.
Yes.
What did you do with the money?
I didn't really do much the first time. I didn't, I was so inculcated with the hive mind culture, right? I didn't know what to do. Go to Vegas, hang out with friends, go to bars, right? Like I didn't really think about what do I really want, right? I was advertised a lifestyle that I thought I wanted, and I followed that, right? And I was also very obsessed with natural gas trading back then. I golfed. I hung out with other traders. I went to Vegas. I chased girls. I did those things.
Why natural gas over anything else you could be trading?
I think, I serendipitously was a peon on the New York Mercantile Exchange, and the natural gas contract was just starting then. And I looked into it, and I was like, "This is the future." New commodity, not that many people into it. Place where there was legacy crude oil traders, right? And this growing, efficient fuel was the wave, and I was like, "Oh, this is where I want to go," and I could, in theory, make a bunch of money.
And when did your perspective on money begin to shift?
There was a book called Your Money or Your Life. You probably read
Vicky.
it. That completely changed my view of money and what money is. And so if you've read the book, you know that one of the definitions they use that they say holds up all the time is money is something you exchange your time for, right? You change your life. So there's a lot of what I think are didactic exercises, very painful, but you go through them and then you have a visceral understanding of spending your time for money, right? They ask you to count every single nickel and penny that comes into your life, then count every single hour and minute you used in order to achieve that money, right? Take the taxes out, and there's your net true hourly wage. And you've done that, right? You've done that painfully for a period of time. And then after that, you get rid of the dollar signs and it just becomes hours. So whatever you buy is in hours or minutes of your life. And you do that for a while and you go, holy, you really get in touch with your values, right?
See, I did that exact same thing. I must have read that book when I was 14 or 15 years old. And I started looking at every single purchase as hours of my life.
Yeah.
But that caused me to not want anything because I would look at like a Starbucks coffee and I'd say, I have to exchange 45 minutes of my life after tax to go and buy one coffee. And that coffee might last me 30 minutes.
Right.
So I'm spending 45 minutes for 30 minutes. That's a bad deal. But maybe I could buy a pair of shoes for 1 hour of my life and I get those shoes for a year. That seems like a pretty good trade-off for like physical things that last.
I went the same way as you. I went super frugal when I read it. And the other thing is, it's not about the time equation. Like some of the most enjoyable things in your life will only last 2 minutes. I'm winking at some of the guys out there. 1 minute. 1 minute. All right. So it's really about the yield on fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
Like because around that time I started thinking about like what is it all for, right? There were lots of you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a millionaire in Lower Manhattan, right? And I'm busted at the time, and I was thinking like, well, I want to be rich before I'm 30, which I think a lot of people say that, right? And I think in that statement is kind of this understanding that the ability of them to enjoy the money or convert it into meaningful experiences declines as they age. Nobody says I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 86.
And when it comes to the Iced Coffee Hour, I just want to say that short-form content has been one of our biggest drivers of growth on the Iced Coffee Hour. Like even this episode with Bill Perkins, we'll often clip up the most memorable moments and post them as shorts throughout TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. But let's be honest, it also takes a lot of time to do it correctly. That's why tools like our sponsor OpusClip are a game changer. And right now, they're celebrating their 2-year anniversary with a huge giveaway. They're giving out a $5,000 cash prize, exclusive swag, and even a MacBook Pro to one lucky winner.
OpusClip isn't just a clipping tool anymore, though. It's a full AI-powered video editor built for creators. It can automatically pull in your long-form YouTube videos, find the best moments, add captions, B-roll, and even schedule clips to post while you're away. It's basically like having an entire editing team, but built by AI. Top creators like Jubilee and Darman are already using it, and we use it too. I mean, do you see this clip Togi's reacting to right here? That clip was made by OpusClip. And everyone who joins gets free credits just for participating. All you have to do is go to opus.pro/clip-the-future right now to learn more and enter the contest. Again, that is opus.pro/clip-the-future, or click the link down below in the description. Seriously, guys, getting clips is extremely expensive and a very long process, but you could just use OpusClip and get them done instantly for a fraction of the cost. So I highly recommend it. Thank you so much to OpusClip for sponsoring this episode.
Nobody says I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 86 or 72 or 73, right? It's always before I'm 30, Forbes 30 under 30, under 40, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some age that's below 40. And when I was walking around Lower Manhattan looking at these very wealthy traders, I was like, yeah, but what's an extra million going to do for them? I mean, what are they going to do? Drive a nicer car, their kids to school in a nicer car? Where's the fun in that? Right? Because I'm a young 20-something, limbic system driving all my decisions. Like, how are you going to get any more girls with that? You can't take any girls on a yacht when you got kids and you got to drive them to school, right? But aside from my goofy thought process, like I had something right. And that was basically the utility of money declines as you age to the individual. Like I'm not an institution. I'm not like the United States of America or Swiss Bank. I'm not going to last 200, 500 years, right? I got an 86-year ride, maybe, if I'm lucky, right? And unfortunately, that ride isn't at a consistent health. It's like I'm going to reach physical maturity, mental maturity, and then I'm going to plateau and decline. And so I'm like, holy, I got to get rich fast so I can really enjoy my life. And it's like, what's the purpose of getting rich? Like in that, all those questions are going on, right? And so that's when I started to think like, wow, at a certain point, the reward goes away, right? Obviously when you die, but even before that, right? Because like you're in a nursing home and everybody's seen, they've had parents, et cetera, or grandparents that are like, can't really convert that money into meaningful experiences, right? Aside from survival. And so I was like, holy, there must be a curve. There must be a utility of money curve. And then when you start thinking about that, like, wait a minute, if you're going to go to work and exchange hours of your life for money, and then you don't convert that money into experiences, right? Whatever, and experiences in the broadest sense, choices, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's buying a watch or building bridges for poor people or et cetera, then you essentially waste your hours of your life. And that's the only thing you got, right? And I began to think about, then there must be a derivative on this. There must be a peak. If I'm supposed to spend it before I die, there must be a peak. And is that peak a number? And I'm like, wait, no, it's not a number. It doesn't matter what the number is. It doesn't matter what your net worth is. It's focused on your health and the decline rate of your health. And so your net worth peak is not a number, it's a date, right? It has to do with your health and your age. And so that's how I came to that conclusion. Very, I'm condensing it down and leaving some things out, but that's when I was like, holy, right? To be grinding it out in your 70s to make more money for a party at 80 is absurd.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy to point it out that way with those two numbers, but it's equally as absurd, what we were talking about earlier, what you're doing. Like, when I became very frugal, my boss, I saved some money on like no salary, and my boss called me a idiot. And I was like, wait, what? And I ping-ponged on autopilot to the other way. I began spending money crazy, which is not what you want to be doing either. That's not what I'm advocating for. What I'm advocating for is people to think about what are the things that fulfill them, and what they think those experiences they want to have on their way to the grave, whether it's in your 20s, 30s, 40s, et cetera, or break them down in a 5 years period, see what they are, right? And then go out and pursue those.
What would you say to the people who get more fulfillment from saving than spending?
Let's assume they're my very close friend, because I'm at the end of the day, I can't tell a addict that one's bad for them. I mean, I can tell them, right? But they're like, you got a problem. I don't have a problem.
Yeah, I can stop
I feel
anytime
great,
I want
right?
to.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have a problem with my, you know what I mean? That's the people with saving, right? But at the end of the day, what I try and point out is like, it's suboptimal. Like, the point of saving, yes, there is some hedonic value to know you're doing the right thing, et cetera. But the purpose of delayed gratification indefinitely is no gratification. And unfortunately, your body has a vote, and it's going to decay, and you will not be able to get that gratification to the extent you can now. And so the purpose of working is the reward, and the reward is not the token. The token is useless. Who gives a shit? You care about the experiences that it's going to afford you, the life it's going to afford you. Like, builders don't really give a shit about hammers and saws, except to the fact that it helps them build houses. If they didn't, they'd throw them the away. And so imagine you had people that are just saving money to be saving money are just collecting hammers and saws to never build a building.
What if they're collecting options in terms of they're collecting the ability to have the choice to do whatever they want?
I think that's great. And I think there is a place for saving, but those options expire just like you will. And not only will you expire, this time period will expire. So it's not just the one death you have, it's the many deaths you have, the single you, the you without kids, the you with small kids, the you with kids out of the house, the you that can actually sprint, the you that will never sprint again for the rest of your life, right? I'm just pointing out there's lots of them, right?
Yeah.
And so in each period of your life, certain activities, choices are optimal, you know? And in certain periods, they don't transfer well or they don't transfer at all. And so depending on who you are and what you want to have out of your life, when you get off autopilot and you think about what experiences I want to have in my life, then, you can allocate your funds correctly. You can save for the things that are, you get the spend burn ratio right? But just to say I'm preserving options, like who gives a like what option you're saving for? List them to me. Tell me what they are. To have this nebulous thing is just fear-based thinking and just trying to justify it by saying I'm saving for options. I'm like, you're full of, you just haven't really done the homework about your life. You haven't really thought about what you wanted out of life. And you're hiding behind this, like, I have a bunch of money thing to justify the laziness of not really getting off autopilot and thinking about what experiences you want to have in each period of your life, right? Like the purpose of the money, right, is for your fulfillment, right? And part of the fulfillment is planning the activity, doing the activity, and then reliving the activity and talking about the activity. Like before we got on, we were talking about your wedding and how you thought it was great. And he was saying, hey, you thought you could have made it better if you loosened up a little bit, right? And so when you talk about your wedding and it was great, et cetera, you're getting fulfillment from that, right? Zero cost fulfillment. How did you pay for that? You paid for it earlier when you spent the money and now you're reaping the dividends. And so if you delay gratification pretty far enough, you don't get that many memory dividends. You get less fulfillment, less high score, and less ability to do some of those activities.
Now, this might be oddly specific, but where do you draw the line for opportunity cost if you're in an area or time of your life where your time, working hours are really valuable, whereas in the future, you don't think you're going to have the same ROI as you do today?
Yeah, that's like, these calculations are tough and everybody's going to have to, that's why these like variables come in there, but you just want the mental model. Like, how am I thinking about this? This is okay. I'm 25. I can take 3 ski trips when I'm 30 or 1 ski trip now because I'm going to give time out. Like, what is a better deal for me, right? You might say, well, I'm going to be 30. I'm still physically fit, right? I don't reach physical maturity until 33. That's a great return. And I still get many years of a memory dividend. I'm going to grind it out and have 3 trips later. Plus, as a young male in your 30s, the sexual power dynamics, I'll be able to meet a lot more girls as a 30-year-old with my shit together as opposed to a 25-year-old without my shit together. So you might make that decision. When you're 60, you might not make that decision, saying 3 trips at 65 versus 1 trip now. I don't know. My knee hurts. My back hurts. This might be my last, ski trip. I might not even be able to ski. The friends that are with me that I would go that actually add to that enjoyment, they might not be around. George is 70. He might be dead, whatever it is. Like, I'm just making up these scenarios. So that thought process, right? Like, not kind of that autopilot, like, oh, I'm just going to save, just thinking it through. And so I think like a 25-year-old will have a lot of arguments and probably tilt towards like, hey, I'm going to take 3 ski trips later. And Mr. 60, 65-year-old might be no.
Yeah. Speaking of death, when is that something that you started to consider? Like, when did that start creeping in that all of a sudden your life isn't just going to last forever?
It was kind of early, but more profound, when I started thinking about like money, its purpose, books like Your Money, Your Life, fulfillment, and kind of like where are you going to get the maximum enjoyment out of your life? Like, where's most of your fulfillment going to come for your life? And so I thought it was like being aware of your death and that you're going to expire kind of like cuts through your ego, right? Like if you're in a plane crash or like you would terminal disease, you're going to die. You're going to have great health, but you're going to die in a year. Like, it's going to cut through all the ego. And you're going to live the life you really want to live, right? You're going to do the things. You're going to say that I love you. You're going to take the risk. You're going to do all the things because you're going to die in a year. And so, you don't live each day as if it was your last. You live each day with death in mind in the future, right? The things you do now are actually influenced by the day you die. It's just a little bit more remote, right? Because the day before you die, you would do certain things. The 2 days before you would die, do certain things, a month before, a year before, et cetera, and so on. And so how you behave, whether you save, the risks you take, the things you do are really influenced by the day you die and the deterioration rate of your body, right? It's just an integral, right, over time. And so being aware of kind of the idea of like when you're going to die, getting a range of that date and your health is extremely, extremely important for you to have the courage to implement this, holy, I'm not going to be as rich as I was last year. I need to convert them into experiences. Like I need to live the life I want. It like kind of forces you to live and take it seriously. Like when you're on vacation and the vacation, it was never going to end. You might never, like when I lived in New York, I never went to the Empire State Building. I never went to all these stores unless somebody came in town because I could always do it. Right. But then when they came in town, it's like, oh, they're here for a weekend. They go see the things. They go to the plays. They go whatever. They take full advantage of New York. And so I think kind of life is that way. A lot of people think like it's always going to be there. I'll always be able to go to Japan. I'll always be able to do X, Y, and Z. Later in life, these things are going to happen, right? And then they let their lives pass them by.
One thing that is a bit of a taboo topic, but would you say money buys happiness? I've seen like, I'd rather be crying in a Ferrari than a Civic. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I actually think it does. But you need to know how to use it. You have these Chuck E. Cheese tokens, right? And you need to know how to go to the desk and exchange them for the comb or the doll at Chuck E. Cheese. And it's kind of like a joke. But what I'm trying to say is that going back to the hammers and saws, right? It's a tool. And so I can give you all the power tools and all the things to build a house. But if you don't know how to use those tools, you will not build a house. And so I can give you a ton of money, right? And if you don't know how to use that tool called money to build a life of happiness, then you won't. You'll just have a bunch of money. And so what you find is when people point out examples of like, money ruined this person or money didn't make them happy is generally they did not know how to use the tool.
When do you feel like it starts tapering off in terms of satisfaction with money? Is there a point of diminishing returns?
I think it's person specific. Money for all the things you want plus a little bit more, right? So that depends on the things you want. And what happens is with money is that you discover a lifestyle and things that you want that you never knew. Like you don't come out of the womb knowing that you like chocolate and you hate onions and I like France and I don't like Thailand or whatever the mix is, right? You go out in life and you discover the things you like and you want, right? I remember when I never wanted to leave Jersey City. I thought it was the best place in the world and I never want to leave. Why would anybody leave Jersey City, right? Went out, discovered like what a idiot I was. Nobody needs more than $150,000 a year, blah, blah, blah. Make $250,000, have zero left over. You're like, oh, what an idiot I was. I can really use $250,000. That's even being efficient and frugal like you, right? I could still spend it. Then it becomes $1 million, right? And so when you say the average person, it's very easy to pick a number that's like double what they have or triple what they have or 2,000 income. Then you meet somebody that's making $5 million a year, et cetera. And you're like, it's not even close, right? It's not diminishing at the same rate, And I think it's when the person is now having capital that they'll never spend and living that life. Right? You could just point it out. They don't even realize it, right? But you can just point it out. Then we're at enough.
I saw a study on CNBC that actually said that in order for people to feel rich, they need double from what they currently make. And they found that across pretty much every single income group. Whether you make 100, you need 200. If you make 200, you need 400. 500, you need $1 million. Yeah. That just kept going, actually.
Yeah. People are not finding the concept of enough, right? Like they're not in touch with what they want. And part of that, which I think is going on, is they're discovering the world, right? You don't know what it's like to be on a super yacht until you can afford to rent a super yacht. And then you're like, holy I would like to be on a super yacht a lot more. I need to make more money to rent super yachts, right? And so, and it's like, I'm actually much happier on a super yacht than I was not on a super yacht, right? And I'm getting fulfillment out of it, et cetera. I didn't know I like to travel as much as I did. I didn't know I liked Japan as much as I did. I didn't know I liked X, Y, and Z. And so I think, part of that is going on, but also people just aren't having a concept enough, right? Like there is, that is not taught here. It's not part of the culture, the concept of enough.
Yeah. I think Ty Lopez was telling us that 10 million was the point of diminishing returns, where everything beyond that point, you start getting a little less than what you could get going from like 0 to 10.
That wasn't true for me.
I thought it was like what he said was a few million, single digit million.
That was per year income.
Oh, $10 million in terms of net worth.
Net worth.
Oh, okay.
Or $2 million a year was optimal if you want to do like 99% of things that you could do. That was enough to buy it.
I went to Thailand and I saw people that were visibly, like I felt were extremely happy and more fulfilled than I was at the time that I went, that were at like fractions of income or like close to no. And I've seen scenarios where personally, like I'm happy, I'm very grateful where I'm at. I live in gratitude. I can't believe the life I get to live, but I'm like, oh, I can convert more into more fulfillment and more happiness. And so, I'm not going to cry if I go back to like sleeping on a couch, right? I'll be like, it sucks, but I'm going to have a great life and I'm going to get as much as I can out of this life, no matter where I'm at, with the resources I have. But if I'm giving more resources, I'll know how to use them.
I agree with travel being a massive like opening of the third eye. Like it's interesting because a lot of the time that we spend now, Graham, with like our friend group and stuff like that, like we're around people that for the most part have like comfortable financial lives. And then when I went to travel in like Southeast Asia and like Manila, Philippines and stuff like that, like I saw a completely different, like way different than the United States too.
Right.
Like low levels of like poverty in the United States is completely different than like low levels in Southeast Asia. And for me to see that, and a lot of the times it seems like they were pretty content with like, for me, that was just like, it was mind blowing. Yeah. And it completely like reshaped my entire understanding of like, what is needed in America.
Yeah, it's not need. Like when we left the caves, we left living in a world of need. We live in a world of want. We don't operate on a need basis. We operate on a want basis. And so a lot of the questions for us in the Western world is like, what do you want? What do you want your ride to look like?
What do you think are the biggest mistakes that rich and poor people are making when it comes to their money?
Not realizing that whatever it is, like it's a tool for their life, for their fulfillment, right? They're realizing that, like, if you're very poor, the first step you're trying to do is survive, right? Like once you have survival covered, the rest is your choices. It's like, what kind of ride do you want to have, right? How do you want to live your life? And so I think a lot of people think that money is a goal, and it's not. It's just one variable out of like the three macro variables: your wealth, your health, and your time, right? To drive fulfillment. Right. And so I think people get that formula backwards.
And what would you say are the highest ROI ways to spend your money? Although really quick, I just want to mention that our sponsor Notion has helped keep us running smoothly on the Iced Coffee Hour. We've used it for everything from guest planning, tracking sponsors, keeping our schedule organized. It is the glue that keeps us together.
And now with Notion AI, it's gotten even better. So we were honestly just really stoked when they offered to sponsor this episode.
Notion AI is all-in-one AI, powered by your work, and all in one place. It automatically captures meeting notes, instantly finds the exact content you need, drafts detailed documents for you, and lets you chat with the best AI models. Notion AI also just became twice as powerful for teams, making it the best AI tool for work.
And with AI meeting notes, it is just so easy. All you have to do is type /meet and it starts transcribing the notes immediately. And then when the meeting is over, you get a clean summary and suggested action items. It is absolutely perfect for keeping track of decisions, ideas, or even podcast interviews just like this one.
So whether you're in school, managing work calls, or just trying to keep your thoughts together and organized in one place, Notion AI helps you remember and act on what matters.
So try it for free at notion.com/icedcoffee, all lowercase. Seriously, guys, we have used this for years. I even used it in college. When I was 18, 19 years old, I was using Notion. I absolutely loved it. If you're not using it, you're behind. And it's absolutely free to try out at notion.com/icedcoffee. We also have a link down below in the description. Try it there. Thank you so much to Notion for sponsoring this episode.
We were just talking about that. Like some of the horror, in terms of fulfillment, the things that I found are, for me, anything that I'm able to do things and experience new things with friends, right? Like most of the time, like I joke that if you go to the movie yourself, you're either a critic or a psychopath. That's not true, right? Like some people like to go to the movies themselves, but like we are wired to connect, right? We have whites in our eyes. We can tell if somebody's looking at us from a faraway distance. I think an evolutionary biologist told me that like we're one of the few animals that can do that, right? All babies dance. You can go into a jungle that nobody's ever met this tribe, start playing a beat, and the baby will start dancing, right? And it's a method to connect with each other, right? And so a lot of the fulfillment for me and a lot of other humans, I'm not saying that every single human, is doing interesting things, learning things, having fun with other humans, right? Because we're wired to connect. And so games, very cheap. You can make them up yourself, or hikes or walking, right? Costs nothing to pay to go into a state park and go see the wonders of a state park with people you love and love hanging out with and share that experience. You can tear up a piece of paper and play werewolves and write the roles down and play a game right there. So
that's a card game for those.
Card game.
It's a board game, and you could just cut up a piece of paper. And
the same thing with cards, right? Yeah. You know, like, well, you can't do it with cards because then people will know you got the 6. but cards, board games, things like that. I think those are the highest ROIs. Then when you get into like money, it's like boating trip, buying the bike tour. Like when you go into a city and you're visiting friends, get the tour with your friends. Make it a goofy tour, wear different hats. Like those are amazing, right? Those are supersizing your trip. Like one of the best parts of like a very expensive yacht trip with friends, et cetera, was like going on shore and taking the bike tour with the guides, with the e-bike tour. It was like, this was the best day ever, you know?
So now that you're at the point where there's probably very few things financially that you want that you can't really afford. Like at that level, what are the things that you spend your money on that really give you the most amount of joy?
I think anything that, like, I think my boat. So the wake surf boat, I have a wake surf boat.
That's awesome.
I got addicted to wake surfing, and that's got to be the highest ROI thing I bought, because you can put 16 people on the boat, everybody's cheering, you're having the times of your life. It's a memory maker in spades. Like it's memory dividends upon memory dividends, and new ones coming out, and people, you know, giving them that experience and teaching them how to wake surf, hanging out with my daughter's friends. It's just absurd, the return on that boat, right? People look at it and be like, that's a expensive boat. I was like, do you understand how many core memories I've had, and great times, and other people's had great times, and connecting times that are radioactive, like friends meeting friends and talking on, and them learning how to wake surf and then doing it on their own, et cetera. It's amazing.
How much was the boat?
My boat, because I think it was like 300,000 or something like that.
Oh,
I have a very fancy boat, right? But it's like,
it's not as bad as I thought.
No, it's a high ROI. And then like even like in St. Thomas, like I was like in St. Thomas, I was like, oh, do I want to get a boat? And I was like, let me get a dinghy to see how, like I got a dinghy. He said cruise around, and we used to call them dinghy days, all around the islands, like go to Yost and the BVI in a dinghy or whatever. And I was like, this is amazing. And then I bought, it's one man's trash is another one's treasure. Like the boat I have that people are like, oh, you got a really nice boat. It was their tender. So I bought this. I bought this Azimuth that was like another guy's tender, right? It's my boat that's like, that's a great boat. You know what I mean? It was his tender, and he's like getting a new one. And I have like the most amazing time. You know, friends go down, I'm like, take my boat out, have a great time. So for me, that has been, you know, an amazing memory maker, amazing fulfilling times. One of the best investments that I can make that like costs money, right? But there are other things like taking a hike with friends that cost no money, that are very fulfilling, that are really amazing times as well.
So if you're giving people a blueprint, where do they start? If there's like 5 steps that they need to do to reach this point where they truly optimize their money.
First, I think the first step is like figure out the day you think you're going to die. There's actuarial tables. You can go see your doctors, et cetera, and your health, right? Like that is like number one, right? Like when you're going to die. And then the second thing is like, whatever periods you want to break them down, 5 years, 10 years, et cetera, break them down and write as much as you can, the type of life you want to have, spiritually, physically, activities wise, et cetera, what you want in those buckets, right? Like you want to have a kid, and you want to see your kid go to kindergarten, you want to graduate school, you want to go to Japan, you want to learn whatever, right? Put those in each period. The further you go out, it gets harder and harder, right? Because it's hard to know what you want, you're going to discover, right? So you have to leave some for discovery, right? I'm going to try this thing. I'm going to try and learn French, whatever, right? And then when you discover, it's like, holy shit, your life can go in these paths. So you have to constantly update this thing. But that is the first step, right? Is what do I want out of this ride? Before we spend a nickel, before we even think about the money, what do I want out of this ride? Because you might, right? Like on one extreme is like, all I want to do is take walks in the park, visit with grandma, and play chess. I'm like, well, quit your job, that miserable job you hate. Let's get this other job. This is the amount of money you need, right? Like this is the whole, your money or your life, the financial independence, retire early. Like, what do I really want out of life? Once you know that, right, we can start talking about spending, saving, grinding, not grinding, etc. Right? What does the arc of your life look like? Are you the type of person that's like, I just want to garden, hang out, play chess and checkers with my friends? Or are you like, I want to go travel the world and be on yachts, etc.? Is that fulfilling for you? So I think knowing who you are and what you want out of life is kind of the first step.
And then after that, how do you get over the fear of spending down your money?
What helps me every day when I wake up and I go into my closet, there's a clock that tells me the percent of life I've had left. You can look it up online. There's this guy that makes these clocks, and you put in your birthday, and it'll say like 50, 70%, 69%, whatever, wherever I'm at, right? And I also have your life in weeks calendar, and you mark off each week, right? And I think that awareness of your demise and helps you get over fears, right? You get really bold when you know you're going to die.
Yeah, that's one of those weird panics I get every now and then, is I just think to myself, usually people believe that like your 50s is middle age, but when you look at the average life expectancy is like 78,
yeah,
it really occurs before the age of 40.
Correct.
And like really 39 is kind of like middle age. And then I have this existential panic, like 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll wake up and be like, wait a second, in a few years, is it half over? And I freak out. I'm like, wait a second, that can't be half over.
Well, don't freak out.
Yeah.
I mean, like, just take it seriously. Just realize, like, wow, I have this, you're young. You have a body that can transfer. You have this biosuit that responds to your wants. If you want to run, it'll let you run more. You want to lift heavy things? It'll give you muscles to lift heavy more things, right? Like, it will do what you want to do, right? But eventually, and also, it's like, it will say, I will last longer in the state for you too. Right? I will carry you further because you are doing things, right? And so you're in a great, great, great spot, right? Like you got like what most Americans don't have down, the ability to optimize and get more out of every single dollar you have, right? And you're in touch with things that you value, you don't value. You're like, I don't value that Starbucks coffee, right? A lot of people are on autopilot the other way, right? And that's why I've sold more books in Japan than I have in the US. Right? I've sold over 500,000 books in Japan and like 200,000 books in here. Right? And it's been out in Japan for far less time than it has been here. Right? Because the Japanese are notorious savers, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't have the like, we're broke problem. And this book isn't just for the rich people. It's really about how do you allocate your life resources. If you have zero money, you still have a decision on whether or not you go goofing off and playing cards with your friends, or you go to grandma and hang out with grandma before she dies, right? It's a book about choices.
How long did it take you to write the book Die with Zero?
You could say a lifetime, because the ideas didn't come like, oh, I got it overnight, right? There were like events that happened in my life, and I wrestled with this idea for a long time. But it took like 18 months, I think, from like, okay, I'm going to write this book, to getting an outline, to, working with a writer, going through it, writing chapters, tearing them out, giving to a friend, him reading it, giving feedback. I'm like, you're right, that doesn't make sense. This is too confusing. Going back and trying to get a book that speaks to the most people, right? I wanted something to save my life. Right. And I've said this before, and people are like, what the do you mean save your life? And I'm like, well, listen, if he got hit by a bus, right, or whatever, and I went in and did the cardio and then mouth to mouth, whatever, all the things, and he came to life, like, oh, you saved my life. You know what's true? You know what's the most true thing about that? He's still going to die. He's 100% going to die. He's just not going to die that day. Right. And so what does he get when he doesn't die that day? Well, he gets more I love yous, more walks in the parks, more trips to Japan, more all the things he wants out of life, right? All the fulfillment that he wants out of life. He gets more to do that before his final destination. Okay. So when I write a book that teaches you about optimizing your life and having more fulfillment as opposed to wasting it away, right? I'm saving your life. I'm saving a piece of your life. I'm giving you more. The same as this in the case where I did that for him. And so I thought about that for me, and I was like, you're afraid of running out of money. I'm afraid of wasting my life. That is my number one fear, is wasting this ride. Right?
How often do you not follow the rules of your book?
Often, because autopilot, I think, is the default mode of humans, right? I think we become good at things in different areas, and they become automatic. Just like driving, right? Like when you first learned how to drive, it was like chaos, right? It was like, I got a signal, and you thought, hit the signal button, check the mirror, it's very like, right? And park and whatever. And now you're driving home, you're listening on the phone, you don't even know how you got to where you were, right? It just becomes automatic, right? Even your job, like editing a video, putting the thumbnails right. Like at first it was hard, and do I put it here? And then you're like, cut, snip, 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 whatever, right? And there's some creativity and changes, right? Anybody who does sales or et cetera, their job becomes easy to them. It becomes a routine. All their activities become routine, and that helps you survive, right? You don't walk up to a door, like I say in the book, and go, is this a door? Round thing seems like a door. You're just like, door, open door, go, right? Memory of a dividend at right there, and autopilot. Serving you well. But that doesn't help you thrive, right? And so I need to be reminded by my wife, by what I wrote, viscerally, to get off autopilot and think about my decisions so that I have the most fulfilling life possible. So that when I'm back on autopilot, I set up the processes and systems that I have a very fulfilling ride.
What's your advice to people with a low income?
I mean, for everybody, it's the health aspect of it. Like, there's no bigger single determinant on your fulfillment than is your health, right? And those choices to be healthy, right? And you can be healthy with low money or no money, right? You can hike, you can walk, you can avoid eating, right? But it's really to think about your life, the same thing, to think about what choices can you make and what will be more fulfilling for you, right? It's that mindset, right? Should I spend time with my daughter, reading books with my daughter, or hanging out with my friends? Or should I be going to grandmother's house? Like, what is going to give me the most fulfilling ride, right? Right? It's not a rich person's book. It's a living person's book, right? This book is about living, right? Like, there's lots of quotes about like, most people die in their 30s and are buried in their 70s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you just don't want to be that. And when you travel the world, you're like, holy, these poor people are living here, right? They're having a great time. They're doing things. They're happy. They're having a fulfilling life, right? They're living life. And a lot of people are rich on autopilot, saving for another day, for another life that they're not going to have.
How often do you try new experiences to see if you enjoy them?
Often. I try and just like whatevs, I'm very much in around to find out mode. That's kind of like my life. Like one of the best experiences I had or I discovered is like riding a train. And like there's these trains that go on tours. And I was like, why do I want to go on a fancy ass train? You got to wear a suit or whatever to go in a dining car or just, somewhat formal. And I was like, okay, reluctantly went on this Orient Express for 3 days, and turned out I loved it and discovered this whole world of riding trains across Canada. There's one my friends were on in Peru. I did one in Japan, was like one of the best trips of our lives. And so I realized that it'd be a world if I knew it all, and that I don't know it all. And one of the things I don't know is what I like.
Yeah. What would you say are the biggest wastes of money that you've personally spent on, or things that you spent money on expecting fulfillment, but it ended up just being nothing?
Oh, cars. Like I thought, like when I first got rich, I was like, oh yeah, I chopped up a Lamborghini. I had a McLaren, and I kept like buying these cars thinking like, I'm going to like the car. And I just felt like a douche driving around in the car. I didn't like it. They were low to ground. They couldn't handle potholes. I'm in Houston. And I was just like, I hate this. I really hate it. I don't like it. I feel awkward in it. And it's just not me. Right. Now somebody else might get value out of it, but I was just like, I didn't know how to be rich for me. I knew how to be rich for what was advertised on TV, right? I was an idiot on autopilot. It's a different kind of autopilot, right? Like I was the super save everything, blah, blah, blah guy autopilot. And I was the idiot spending money on goofy autopilot. And the only reason why it was goofy is because it wasn't me. I didn't sit down, get in touch with myself, understand like, what do I really enjoy? What do I really like? What is really fulfilling? What is the car really for?
So what car do you drive now?
I usually Uber or something, but I have a Toyota Sequoia. The funny thing is I did buy a Ferrari Spider that I never drive just because it's such a beautiful piece of machinery.
And you can get enjoyment out of like looking at it and stuff.
I do. I just don't drive it as much. It's like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like, it's just, to me, it's just weird. It's just weird. I mean, like, if I was a race car guy or whatever, I would just drive it all the time. Like, this is what I do. I drive fast cars. But I don't even like driving. I hate driving.
What would you say are your biggest financial failures?
I guess I tried to do this big, large infrastructure project in El Salvador and California, and took like X years permitting this thing. Won a contract, and then they voided the contract, and the whole thing was rigged, and I couldn't do it. Right? I learned a lot on it, but vaporized a ton of money. And then movies. I did movies.
You did movies. Oh,
But the movies wasn't
risky.
financially, that wasn't a disaster. The bond part, like back in movies, that was like the biggest.
Could you explain the difference? I'm not familiar.
So there's financing of movies, right?
Mhm.
And there's all the structures, right? There's the equity, there's the debt, and there's a senior debt, right? And I took on a significant position in a firm that did like the debt, right? Thinking it was safe, wiped out.
But you produce movies.
Yeah.
You funded the production.
I did it. I was on the set. I grinded it. I've edited.
What
I've
movie?
Written sides. I've done the whole
like
thing.
big movies, that one would be.
I don't know bad movies, but big movies and bad movies. I mean, I don't know. Have you ever heard of a movie
Sure.
called Unthinkable?
I'm not a big movie type.
Baytown Outlaws, Cat Run, Dark Under the Stars. I don't know, 8, 9 movies I've done.
And where do you think you went wrong on those investments?
Well, the movies weren't like wrong on the investment. Like you go into a movie knowing you're not going to make money in the movie, right? Like if you look at the movie business as a whole, right?
Mhm.
Like back in the day when actually they released movies, there would be like 160 to 200 movies released per year. And like the top 50 make all the box office.
Mhm.
And no independent movie is ever in there. Ever. Right? If it's not picked up by a major studio. But there's 600 there's at least 600 to 1,000 films with a budget over $1 million that get a rating, which means they intended to be released, right? Or sold over $1 million a year. And you're not a studio. So all the movies that are independent, they are in this other field trying to like sell rights in like Europe, et cetera, and grind it out. And the only people making movies and money in the movies are the actors and the unions helping you, Key Grip and those guys writing on salary.
All right.
So it was funny because we would be on set and they would be complaining like, you guys are making money. I was like, I will gladly give you my points if you will work for free. If you guys will do all this free, I will gladly give you all my points.
What did you expect the ROI to be?
Negative 33%.
So why would you put money in an investment that you expected to lose money
Why do
on?
people do art? It's not an investment, right? Like if you
So,
this is why I
this
tell
is a passion project.
This is what I tell my friends. Like, if you're going into movie business, you either want to go to the parties and sleep with stars. You want to make a piece of art that's never been done, or be a patron art or say something, right?
Mhm.
Make a piece, right? Like there's where's your returns coming from.
Got it.
Because I always tell them, if you're in it for the money, you're not going to do that. Actually, I would say if you're in it for the money, back in the day, you used to be able to go to Sony and be like, I want to invest in your slate and give them money. And they would put you in their slate and you make like an 8% return, right? They'd have a flop hit or whatever. Because if you don't have that distribution and that power, you're done for.
Interesting.
Now, there are always exceptions to the rules. Like if you make a horror movie where people do not care about the actors and the cast, et cetera, you can make a low budget horror movie, grind it out, sell it, and be profitable and keep doing that, right? But if you're trying to be creative and I just want to make a movie about this story and this is a great idea, you're done for.
So here's another thing is how do you balance enjoyment, saving, spending in different areas of time in your life, like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s? For me, when I'm considering, okay, I'm 26 years old, I can go out on a Friday night. For example, 2 nights ago, I went out and got a really nice dinner with my friends. And then after that, we went to some bars like over in Las Vegas on the Strip. And I stayed out until probably like 3 a.m.
Right.
And now I'm like, okay, how does that affect my lifespan? Right? Like the amount of money that I spent, like in your 20s, should you be doing these sorts of things that could shorten your lifespan?
Yeah, I was on Peter Attia's podcast and we talked about this. And the purpose of your health is to drive your fulfillment, not the other way around. And so it's not about being in maximized health. Like I don't want to be the healthiest that ever lived, like Brian Brian
Johnson.
Brian Johnson, right? Because why? I don't want to be in a lab like a boy in a bubble, right? In the most shape, right? Not having a fulfillment. So that's an extreme example, right, of me saying that your health is a tool for you to be fulfilled. Your wealth is a tool for you to be filled. Your time is your tool for you to have a fulfilling life. And so for you, that time with your friends that you can't get back, if that was fulfilling you, yes, you'll die a minute earlier. Who cares? It's not about living the longest life. It's about having the most fulfilling life. And if you accept that, right, that axiom, then yes, there's times you should do things that are unhealthy.
What about for the audience watching? They're in their 20s. Let's just start there. What are the experiences that you found to maximize your 20s?
I mean, every single story I tell, aside from like personal feats that I need to overcome, involved other friends, involved things, right? Like we scrounged up the people and we went on a trip here and hilarity ensues and learnings and fun and sometimes fights and disasters and whatever. But like now it's like, oh my God, remember that time, right? So I would do so much more of that I didn't do in my 20s, right? And, you think your core friend group, who you're still going to love throughout the rest of your life, you get to spend all this time with them. You don't. They pair off. They have kids. They have other priorities. They chase jobs. They have other dreams, etc. And so I would create more moments, activities, and excuses to spend time with them. I actually say that most of the things I do or the activities we have, it's just an excuse to hang out with our friends and do comedy show, a trip, boat ride. Yeah, like wake surfing, whatever, but I don't do it alone. Yeah, I like movies, but I don't watch them alone. Yeah, I like clubs, but I don't do them alone. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would look for more activities to do that.
And what about in your 30s?
I mean,
one
it
thing
depends.
in your book that really hit is that there are times in your life to enjoy certain activities. And there's no sense wasting time, let's just say hypothetically, in your 20s going on a train when your 20s could be spent hiking up a mountain that you can't do in your 60s.
Right. I think there's a balance. I don't think it's zero of that, right? Like, but what you want to do is like if you're forced into a decision, right, point between a more athletic and physically demanding activity versus a more sedentary type activity, you want to shift those more athletic activities to your 20s and 30s and early 40s, and the more sedentary activities to later in life, right? If you're trying to get the high score. Right. Because just think about it as a video game, like, and we got fulfillment points for activities and we laid them out there. Right. If you have your character, right, and this character has this decay curve, right? If you have your character try and do all the physical activities later in life, like, you know what I mean, then you're not going to get to do them all and you're not going to get the high score. Right. Like you'd reverse them. Right. And you'd be able to do them all and you get the high score. Right. And so life is like Tetris, you kind of got to get the order right. It's the same thing with activities in your life, right? Like if you delay hiking Kilimanjaro to your 80s and heli skiing and all, and, walking all these cities, right? Like until you're later in life, you're probably not going to get the high score, right? There's a kind of that meme that floats around about the couples sleep in the gondola. Have you ever seen that one?
No, I haven't.
Look it up on the internet. There's like this older couple asleep and it's like, reasons why you should travel when you're young.
One thing that's a little bit harder of a conversation is if you're younger, let's say in your 20s, maybe early 30s, something like that, or even late teens, and you're working a job and maybe you can save, $500, $1,000 if you're lucky at the end of every month. Like most people out there, like it's hard to have a big financial cushion. Maybe even it's just like a couple $100.
Right.
How do you justify then spending that money on experiences and activities rather than putting that in something like a Roth IRA or cutting out on certain experiences and activities to then be able to at least have some sort of like minimum financial standard? How do you draw the line on
Well,
that?
I think in each individual person, they're going to have a certain financial trajectory. Are they going to be making more money in the future or less? Or are they going to be making the same? For those who are going to make more money in the future, it's a no-brainer. The experiences you can have a higher return on fulfillment than the 8%, 10% return you're getting in a Roth IRA. And on top of that, you are taking from your poor self and giving it to your future rich self. So it's just completely backwards, right? For those who are going to have steady or declining income, then, we are bumping up against survival and we need to save money for survival. So it's really a question of where are we on the survival curve, and is our income going to be growing outside of savings, right?
So you just have to consider your job. Is it scalable? Do you think that your income is going to be going up over time? You have to have an honest conversation with yourself if
Correct.
you think that you have the skills and wherewithal to be able to make more money when you're older.
Correct. And I don't get into like the making money and earning money, but there's side hustles. There's all kinds of ways. Like one thing I realized, like for those who are like have average intelligence and lots of hustle, there's so many ways to make money.
Well, a really quick, fun story here, but when Jack and I first started the Iced Coffee Hour, we had to figure out everything ourselves, from the best cameras to use, how to edit, how to pick our guests, tracking sponsors, you name it. Every single day was a new challenge. That is why, if you're starting a business, you know exactly how relevant today's sponsor is, and that would be Shopify.
Shopify is basically your all-in-one business partner. They power millions of businesses worldwide, from major brands like Mattel and Gymshark to entrepreneurs just getting started. And here's a fun fact. If you've shopped online in the United States, there's a really good chance it was through Shopify, since they power about 10% of all American e-commerce.
What's great about Shopify is that you get access to a complete design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates to build a beautiful online store that perfectly matches your brand. No coding needed. Their AI tools even help you write product descriptions and enhance your product photos.
Shopify also makes marketing extremely easy with simple email and social campaigns to reach customers wherever they're scrolling. Plus, they handle literally everything from inventory to shipping to returns, basically all of the complicated stuff you don't want to deal with.
If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business ideas into...
So sign up for a $1 per month trial at shopify.com/ICH. Guys, it is $1 to change your life forever. I've had several Shopify stores. Graham has had several. We've had several people on this podcast that have become millionaires because of their Shopify store. So it's a $1 per month trial. You could change your life forever at shopify.com/ICH, all lowercase. There's also a link down below in the description. Thank you so much to Shopify for sponsoring this episode.
One thing I realized, like for those who are like have average intelligence and lots of hustle, there's so many ways to make money.
Do you think that applies to the average person? Because I realize where we're sitting right now. And for those that aren't aware, this is Caleb Hammer's studio. And all the time he has people on this side of the desk that have blown thousands of dollars on trips or experiences, and they're going into credit card debt because they spent all of their money and then their car broke down.
We're not saying be foolish, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
so where do you draw the line?
I mean, like you want to consider these things, right? Like, there is a line, right? Like, I've been on both sides, right? I've been on the super frugal, and I've been like, I have no money. Like, I literally have no money and I have credit card debt, and I make an obscene amount of money, right? For my age at the time. But what we want to do is thinking like, what are the fulfilling things I can do within my budget, and what does my future income look like, right? And for each person, that's going to be different. Am I eventually going to hit a home run type of guy, or am I a guy that's like, I'm going to have a safe job and this is it, and this is my income, and what I save is going to have to sustain me for the rest of my life, right? And there are all kinds of different people with different type of risk appetites, with different types of opportunity sets.
It made me think back to something I haven't thought about in probably 15 years or so. I was 11-ish around this time. And I remember...
So envious.
I
was 11-ish.
I went to Chase Bank.
Right.
Or Washington Mutual, whatever it was back at the time, a long time ago. And I deposited, I think it was like 50 or so bucks.
Right.
Because it was like my birthday money or something.
Right.
And then I looked at the amount of money I had on my savings account, and my brother went with me. I mean, it was Christmas because we both went together. And my balance was like $400. I was lucky. Like my parents, I'd get some money and stuff for my birthday and Christmas. So I had like $400 by like 11 or something like that. And then my brother had 700, and he's 2.5 years older than me. And I was like, wow, like if I save my birthday and my Christmas money, in 2.5 years, I'll have $700.
Right.
But I also remember like there were games that I wanted. Pokemon had came out, and like I wanted to buy Pokemon, but it was like $50. And like all my friends had it, and I became very frugal because I saw my brother was very frugal, and he was able to save $300. And now I think like, wow, like $300, like obviously that's a sizable chunk of change. You could still do some really cool things with that, but like the amount that it means to me now versus the amount that it meant to me when I was 11 or 12 is just like incomparable.
Right. So you have yeah.
And now I try to apply that between now and, wherever my future is at, while obviously remaining, I would say conscious and accurate, hopefully. But yeah, it's completely.
I don't know what the right answer is for you, but if you are thinking about it and you're modeling it out, you are closer to an optimal life than just autopiloting it, right? Like you were taught a very good skill and something to have in your toolkit, which is saving at a young age. But you remember at the expense of a fulfilling childhood, like buying a bike would be much better for you than that $400. Like who gives you can't remember $400, right? If you had a bike, you would remember all those times biking around with your friends and all the memories you have. And that's what you'd be talking about instead of this, like I had $400 saved in a bank, useless story that you have right now, right? The skill is useful, but the fulfillment and the memory dividends are completely missing at that age, right? And so what you don't want to have happen is that it happen now. And but at the same time, being mindful of like, I don't want to be busted, right?
The trick is to be mindful, but it's hard because, like you said, it's developing the skill of saving or like developing the anti-skill of just spending all of your money and getting stuck on this like hedonistic pursuit of life.
Yeah, the skill is living. The skill we want is living. We want to thrive, right? And what thrive means to each individual person is different, right? So I don't give a shit about saving. I don't give a shit about spending. I care about fulfillment and thriving. Those are just tools for the big F, the big fulfillment, right? My health, my wealth, my time, all my decisions, right? It's all from my fulfillment. And then the hardest question, which I don't write about in the book, is, well, what is fulfilling? I'm like, I don't know. That's up to you, right? Like, there's tons of books on like how to live a fulfilling life, and you can believe one or whatever according to your values, your religion, whatever belief system you have. Like, you kind of have an idea what your fulfillment is, but like you need to get off autopilot and think about what that means in each period of your life. But saving, spending, I don't give a shit. Fulfillment.
What do you think is more dangerous, overspending or underspending?
From my fear point, it's underspending, because the thing I'm worried about is wasting my life. Because if I think for particularly you guys, right? Like, you have no risk. If I take all your money away from you guys now, you're gonna make it back, right? You're gonna go get a job. You'll have a well-paying job. You're gonna have a great life. I can vaporize your money right now, and you're still gonna have a successful life. You have zero risk. Zero. You guys are intelligent people with great skill sets, right? Subject-verb agreement. You know, you think through things. You are blessed with mental acuity. You have zero risk. Zero.
It's so funny. I see us have a lot of risk.
I know. You live in fear.
Yeah.
You get there's monsters.
The opposite of that.
You're a monsters under the bed type of guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have monsters under the bed. But like, I look at you guys, I'm like, these guys.
I was even telling Jack, I'm like, yo, Jack, we should prepare for like the podcast maybe not doing as well because of what's happening in the markets. And I'm like, the last time these have happened, like we ended up losing out on quite a few contracts.
It might
I'm
happen.
Like,
it might happen. You might lose it all. I'm just saying you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
I'll come to you in 10 years and I'll be like, did it matter? But like, no, we figured this out. I got a job here. I got whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you're easily to employ, and you're also easy to start another business, whichever path you choose, the safe route working for somebody else or the wild adventurous side of an entrepreneur. And I think entrepreneurs are like, holy shit, I can die. The business can die. You won't.
In fairness, here's another thing is that some people just have differences in terms of where they get their enjoyment from in terms of expense. Like Graham, the things that he likes in his life tend to be a little bit more on the pricey side. Like he wanted an aquarium, and kudos to him for doing this, but he spent a lot of money on this aquarium. He wants experiences, for example, once again, not trying to say the group, but like he took this group out, the Index, on this very lavish trip.
Yeah, 40 grand.
It's amazing.
Yeah, he dropped 40 grand for 2 days on this group that he has.
Yeah.
And for him, like that is like what he wants to be doing. For me, pickleball. And the cost is maybe $300 a year. And that like, so it's easier for me to have, you know, I don't see money and happiness in the same sort of thing. Whereas other people, their money is directly tied to their, like some people are also more materialistic. Like Graham genuinely does get happiness. Like the guy that has that nice cars in the group,
right.
Like having nice cars and having nice watches and this and that.
I would say to a certain degree, I like collecting things.
That
I'm
being
a
said,
collector.
like, so you have zero risk. Like you should be taking maximum risk, right? Like, and he has like a little bit of risk, but like what you're young, you're still going to discover things that you like. You didn't know pickleball existed 4 years ago.
True.
Right? So now you're like, it's pickleball, right? But 4 years from now, it's going to be the other thing, right?
It's always going to be pickleball.
Yeah, he's like, no, it's pickleball. I love her. She is my best. It's always going to be pickleball. But you're going to discover other things that you like. Maybe pickleball will always be number one, right? But there'll be other things that drive your fulfillment, just like he will as well, because life is discovery. And the more you live it, the more you'll discover and the more you learn. It's a very sad, sad, sad world if you discovered it all.
So to be intentional about how you should be spending your resources, time, money, etc., mental energy, what do you think? You just read certain books? Do you meditate? Do you write down and just sit in?
Oh, wow. Like, I think what we went over, like, what are the first steps is like, be aware of what you die, break your life off into periods. I call them time bucketing, right? And then think about the experiences you want, but realize like you are going to discover what you like. Like, you didn't know your wife at one point, right? Or your girlfriend or pickleball or whatever. Like you discovered these things and realize like that is life, right? Life is going to be discovery. And I think like, my belief is having a fulfilling life is continual discovery. And so you're going to be out there. You didn't know you wanted to do a podcast. You didn't know you wanted to have this guest. You didn't know you liked the book Die with Zero. Do you like it? I hope you like it. Anyway, so like, just remember that, like, that is what's going to be driving it. Like, there's a, you ever hear the thing, like, would you rather be the king of England in 15 something or like lower middle class or poor today?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think the answer is obvious, poor today. Right. And people cite reasons, different reasons. Right. But I think one of the main reasons is the speed of travel. The average poor person could live the entire life of the king in 2 months, right? They could take a bus to Florida and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they could probably buy a Super Saver ticket on Southwest and go, have an adventure and go around, which would take a lifetime for a king, right? And on the way, he did this and he went to this concert and he did that and then he saw a show and whatever. King can do that. Right. Aside from that, he had straw for toilet paper and would die of like simple things or whatever. Forget all that. Just the speed of travel, which allows you to move through this world and experience more. Right. Allows you to condense more. Right.
What period of time in your life has been the best so far?
Now. It's always now. But I think, I was the good old days. Like I think courting my current wife and the engagement and my daughters, now one just turned 21, one just turned 18. It seems like it's the best time, right? But I've been grateful for every period. Like sometimes I'll go back and be like, oh, those were the greatest times in high school, hang out, had no money, etc. Like being busted in New York City trying to make it was like an amazing time in my life. But it was filled with activities that were meant for that period that don't really transfer, like running around and spending money and being broke and trying to make it in New York City and chasing girls don't fit into this time period of my life. But it was a great time. It was a great time being young and single in New York, right?
And how do you balance this book with raising your daughters and making sure they don't grow up spoiled, but they appreciate the work and sacrifice that went into this, but also enjoying life?
It's the same thing. Like my message, the physics that govern my body are the same physics that govern my daughter's body, right? Like they will grow, they will reach mental maturity, calculation power at 28. They will reach physical maturity at 33. They will plateau and decline. And so, I want them to go out and what resources they have, their health, wealth, and time, right? And whatever resources I will give them, right? Which would be part of their wealth, to use that to drive their fulfillment. My goal is to give them the value system and the answers to help them navigate the world and then to let them go out and make their own mistakes, right? Like I've made millions and millions of mistakes. I will continue to do that. I'm a mistake-making machine, but that's part of the ride.
Do you think there's an amount of money that you could give them that might stifle some of their creativity?
Yes. 100%.
Okay.
It's funny because I was talking to a friend and kind of shifted my view a little bit. He's like, look, our kids, they want an iPad, they get an iPad, we didn't have an iPad. Like, even if we were well off, like we necessity was part and struggle was part of the ingredients that made us, right? It wasn't like the only ingredient, but it was part of the ingredient. And they are missing in many ways, not completely, that ingredient, right? that gave us like whatever advantage, right? Some advantage. And so, my friend is like, you have to pay for that. You have to cover that because you robbed them of the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you don't mean to rob them, but like, if you made it, like, you don't want to like, it's like, oh, I don't want to live a busted life. What was the purpose of making it? Like, I could have lived a simpler life, and I could have made that choice. I could have said, you know what? We live on a farm. We're going to grow our own potatoes. We're going to live a simple life or whatever. And my kids will be like, okay, I have this grit and necessity. And if I want an iPad, I got to go hustle. And then if I want these things, I got to go hustle. And they would have that as part of their, repertoire at a greater index than what they have now. And they can go out and make it. And I've robbed them of that because I didn't want to go live on a farm. I'm using extreme examples, right? But you get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I keep giving them money, they would lose it all, right? You know what I mean? They would lose it completely, right? Like not have that necessity. And I think it's part of the ingredient of navigating the world.
And how do you balance giving to your children versus giving to yourself?
I pick an amount that I'm going to give them. I don't know what like in the book, I talk about when you should be giving the inheritance to the kids and not make it a bequest, which is absurd, but not the amount, right? It could be zero. It could be $1 zillion. I think that's very personal. But for me, the thing is you need to come up with a number. So you're not just using that excuse of, oh, it's just going to go to my kids when I die and they're 60, which is absurd. It's just an absurd thing. They're not kids then, right? Like, more than 2/3 of their life has passed them by, right? And their ability to enjoy that money has declined, et cetera. You're giving them money at the wrong time, and it's completely not thought out. It's not deliberate. It's random. It's silly. What you should do is figure out what you want to give them, and then spend all your money down till you die. And then they have their money. It's protected. You get sued. You know what I mean? It doesn't take that money. You do something stupid and you lose all your money. Their money is protected. It's separate. It's their money. It doesn't mean they get to go spend it when they're 19 or 20. It's in a trust and it turns over to them when it turns over to them. Right. And if you don't have all the money made, you just put money in yearly until it gets there. Right. If there's some uncertainty, but there's ways to do it. But the whole book is about living off autopilot and being deliberate and thinking these things through, not just be like, oh, when I die, my money will go to my kids. Right. That worked when, a couple hundred years ago where you were a farmer, your kids were a farmer. Kids were going to be a farmer, et cetera, right? So like you died, they take over the farm. They do the same thing. And he takes over the farm. Or he's a blacksmith. My son's a blacksmith. There'll always be a blacksmith. We're the Smiths, right? Like that's not how it works nowadays, right?
Yeah.
You don't just turn over the family enterprise and that's what they do. Right?
Now, since you wrote the book, is there anything that has changed your perspective or that you would change about the book if you had the power to snap your fingers and edit it?
No, I've never been I've done, I think over 54 podcasts. I've done a couple talks. I don't like doing talks in the beginning, like they want you to go around and do all talks. Nothing where I've been stumped. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should change this, as a principle. Like, I think it's like very axiomatic. It's not like new. It's full life cycle hypothesis, like laid out, right? Like, have you guys heard of that? Mm-hmm. It's essentially income smoothing about like basically, taking from your richer self in the future and giving to you now so that you have a more fulfilling life, et cetera. Two guys, I think they won a prize for it. So you can look it up, but
what is the life cycle hypothesis?
It's essentially it's basically income smoothing. Like when you're in your poorer self right now, you should be going to somewhat in debt, okay? Because your income is going to grow and you're going to be able to extinguish it in order to get the experiences you want to have now.
So it's essentially what you're...
Yeah, I didn't know about full life cycle hypothesis. I learned about it when I hired an economist when I wanted to make this program. And I was like, holy shit. It's like, to me, it was like a sign that like, I am thinking about this life problem correctly, right? Like if people discover the laws of physics, right? They didn't invent them, right? Like you discover a truth, right? And so I discovered a truth. I think, I have friends that are like, we want the 600-page version of this. We want, like, I didn't want to write it like a cookbook, like do this, do that, do this, do that. Like it's modeled a lot on Your Money, Your Life, where there's like exercises at the end or like suggestions at the end. So there's a couple suggestions at the end. But whenever I go give a talk, they're like, I want the cookbook. You know what I mean? I want more examples of how to do this, right? I want more examples to how to spend my money or how to save. I want more examples of annuities and things or how they work. I want more examples of granted annuity trusts or ways to transfer your money. Like a 600-page version will give people like kind of like what to do. But I didn't think most of the value is getting the concept, right? It's like just getting the concept, right? Once you get force equals mv squared, right? Then you do all kinds of wonderful things, right? Once you get E equals mc squared, you get satellites that get the timing right and all these other kind of things. So it's like really about getting the formula right and the concepts right, and then people can apply them individually as they see fit.
So where do you invest your own money?
I am not an example, right? Like I tell this people, like
You're like oil futures, and
I'm not a role model. I think I can be an inspiration, right? I make way too many mistakes to be a role model. Like, do not live my life. You are, but I think I can be an inspiration. You know what I mean? I think I can be inspiring. And so, I take maximum risk, right? Like most of my money is either tied up in my fund, right? Or the things I have. I have a lot of private placement too. Like I probably have way too much money in venture capital and private placement, right? Like, cause now I'm like you say, like I'm a liquid. Like, what if I want to go here? I can't get the cash, right? And so that's generally where it is. And now I've actually put a needle scratch to all that because of my age. A lot of friends are like, oh yeah, and you're gonna make money in 10 years. I'm like, 10 years?
Yeah.
I'm trying to have a party now.
So do you have just cash on the side that you're like, this is my money that I don't touch, that is there for a rainy day if I absolutely need it, just in case?
I used to. I don't. Because I have houses and assets that I can liquidate in a fire sale. I mean, even if it's half, it's like, I'm okay. Right? I'm quite okay and quite planning to have a lot less money. Not right now, but like if it happens, it happens. I'm not ego attached to it.
It seems like this has been something that has been you for decades, though. I mean, just to be able to trade.
Yes. Like I've been trading.
Like that and take on that risk. I think your risk tolerance is probably 10 times higher than mine.
Yeah, it's very high. And one of the things people say, like, what would you say to somebody in their 20s or 30s? Like, what advice do you give them? I say, in every area of your life, take the most risk you can possibly stand, and then add a little bit more.
So I guess here's my philosophy. I feel like you could take a ton of risk when it comes to your time and career. But then when it comes to your money and investments, you could play it safe there. And so that's like maybe a good balance where like, go gung-ho on like making as much money as you can. But then once you have it.
I would say take all that money and invest it in yourself. Go start the business that you have inside your head. That's the riskiest thing you could probably do, right? That's going to give you the most yield. I'd say the savings. But that's just me. Remember, that's just me. I mean, you can always go get a job, so you're not going to be broke. You will never be broke, and he will never be broke because you can always go get a job. What's the safety for?
Do you have any advice for people who want to start their own business?
Make sure you're the type of guy that can be an entrepreneur and take the risk. I think a lot of people, it's romanticized a lot, and not everybody is cut out to do that. Maybe you're the guy that needs to get paid first, right? Not the entrepreneur that's dipping into his savings to pay the employees and do the vision, et cetera, that hold it and like do your best. Like a lot of people think an idea is the thing, and it's actually the execution. I'm sure you're very well aware of that, right? Like podcast sounds like a great idea, but people don't realize like how much work goes into editing, getting the thumbnails, getting the guests, coordinating with the guests, running around, dealing with sponsors, not being too commercial so people turn out. Like just so much that goes into making this podcast entertaining and running it as a business than just like, I got a great idea, right? And so make sure you're that type of person and that you can take that risk.
How do you know if you're that type of person?
Yeah, I mean, you can develop it. Like, are you the type of person that's okay going busto for a bit or having to go back to work? I always like people like yourself that are like, you can easily get a 50, 60, 70, 80, $100,000, $200,000 a year job. Well, like you have no risk. There's no real financial risk. You only have ego risk,
It seems like the common thread between everything you're saying is just being hyper intentional.
Yes.
Yeah.
About everything.
You got the book. The book is about being intentional, living an intentional life. And there's a lot of other books out there that come at it from a different angle, right? They talk about different things about intentionality, being aware, being conscious, living a conscious life. But that is the whole book in a nutshell.
What have you learned from Dan Bilzerian?
I've learned that I don't want to be too famous. That's one of the reasons why I don't, like somebody's like, you did TED Talk. I was like, no way will I do a TED Talk. I wanted to do a TED Talk originally, but like, I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be too famous, right? Like, you want to be like Z level famous. You get a nod, a little dopamine hit. You're legitimized, but like you can be anonymous. Like you can walk around. Like 1 in 300 people recognize you, right?
What's the risk with being too famous?
For the life I want to leave, it robs you of your life. I would completely lose because you cannot enjoy life. Like you cannot, when you're famous, like it's constant people coming up to you, wanting a picture, wanting to talk to you, trying to force a conversation to connect with you. So they're not bad people, right? But like they get to see somebody's famous and they want to take a picture. Like when else are they going to bump into you? And they want to have a conversation about somehow you're connected or how they know you. And you're robbed constantly. Like you're in a bubble. You have security and you can't go anywhere and you can't do things. And like I like to travel to Europe and walk around the shops and meet the people and not be known. And it's a great, great life of discovery. But like if I was famous, it's gone in a heartbeat. And then I have too much money because I can't spend it on the things I like doing. And then you have to worry about people who are, we're herd animals, right? Like we get fame brain. So people act different around you and you can't have authentic connections with new people because the fame is always in the way, you know? And so it's really, really bad. The only thing fame gets you is sex with the opposite. So if you're a famous woman or a famous man, you can have all the sex you want with all types of people.
What else did you learn from Dan?
Kind of the idea of what is more powerful as a sexual attractant, whether it's fame or money. And we always knew it was fame, not money, right? You always know like the broke drummer in the band is going to get way more laid than the rich guy, right? Rich guy's not even getting in the club because he's not cool, right? He's got to buy his way in if he can. But we didn't realize like it was 100 times more powerful or 1,000 times more powerful. It is way, 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 way more powerful than anything.
We had Greg Doucette on, and not that he's like a love guru or anything, but he said he read a study that, what was it, $30,000 in income, every increment up $30,000 is the equivalent of 1 extra inch on your height. And he says that height is like super important. That's what he said.
Yeah, I think for the average person, non-famous, height matters. Dan's short, right? But he's famous. It doesn't matter. I don't care how tall you are. You'd be 6'3", trust fund, whatever. The famous guy wins. Prince was short. He everybody, guys and girls.
I'd be curious to see.
like these guys are short. Like the most actors that you see that are like, you know, people are screaming at and girls are throwing their bras at, they're short. Doesn't work well on Tom Cruise is short. You know?
I'd be curious to see the correlation between 1 inch of height and 10,000 followers. And just see like where the optimal is. Because I'm sure being 6'2" is equivalent to like,
yeah, for the average person that's out there, like
just overall,
height,
like, there's got to be some sort
height. A comedian said this, and I'm going to steal it, but he's like, height is to guys what titties are to women. Height is just titties. You know what I mean? It's male. You know, it's like, you know, like it's like, oh wow, he's got nice tits. Like it's an attractant, right? Like, and so like, you know, I don't know. Like those things matter. But you know, the experiment that Dan ran was, what does fame do for you? Right? Like in the pursuit of getting famous in order to get women, and that hedonic treadmill, fame is extremely powerful. And it taught me that I don't want to be famous. Like I was wanted to go that route, and then I was like, oh no.
So for the people who come up to you and recognize you, what are some of the most impactful stories that you've heard from people who have read your book and changed their life?
Like originally it was like, oh, because I'm a trader. Like people knew me from natural gas and trading, like very small niche. And then it was poker because I played poker on TV and in the movies, et cetera. And then recently it's all been like, you're Bill Perkins, you wrote the book Die With Zero. I get a lot of stories about how people have completely needle scratched their life and woken up and now they're pursuing their life. And so it could be time of like, now I spend time with my family, or I take my whole family on this trip, or now we're doing this, you know, I haven't been living and now I'm living, but it's some version of they were on autopilot and now they're not. Right. And it's amazing. It's a great feeling. Like it's overwhelming though. It's a little bit because it's like, oh, I can't, you know what I mean? Like one of those guys that can't take
little old me.
Yeah. No, I just can't take it. It's like, this was a side project, right? This was like a side thing. Like, fuck it. It's like,
it's a side quest.
Yeah, it was definitely it was a side quest. Like, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to save my life. Like the doctor's like, you need to write a book. I'm finally going to write a book. I've been talking forever. It's time to back it up. Went through the grueling process, wrote the book. I really wanted to get out there, but now I'm like, holy shit, it's out there. You know what I mean? It's coming back.
Ever had someone come up to you and say, hey man, I spent too much money?
Never in my life. I mean, I get the beggars on Instagram, like I went broke gambling or whatever, or something like that. But never is like, I read my book, your book, because it's not about spending all your money like an idiot. You know what I mean? It's about having the most fulfilling life. Like the title is catching, right? It's supposed to catch you in an airport. It's like, what the does he mean die with zero? This is, read the book. Holy shit, it's not what it says it, right? Like, so the book is about, if I wanted to have like a kind of like, I don't know, what is the own network type title? You know what I mean? It would be like, have the most fulfilling life. You know what I mean? Get the most fulfilling life, or fulfillment. It's for you, or something shit like that, right? And I'm like, no, let's stick with the axiomatic principle is that you should use all your resources up before you die.
I'm in a lot of financial independence groups, and your book is the only one that's consistently mentioned, probably on a daily basis.
Yeah, like the FIRE guys, like there was a Mr. Money Mustache, right? Like he's one of the guys who read the book and like kind of shifted, and they always like have this like allergic reaction at first to the book, right? Because they're baptized in fire. Like I was baptized in fire, and like I just tell them like, what happens to the principal? Whatever, they're always like, I'm going to spend 3% of my. I'm like, what happens to the principal? So whatever you have of the principal, right? Like whether it's $1 million, 500,000, whatever, take the hours of your life that it took to build up that principal. That's a waste. You have to spend down the principal. The principal has to go too. And they're always like, you know what I mean? They freak out, right? Because they have this religious belief about this 3%, 4%, whatever rule they are that keeps them safe and living that life. And I'm like, the goal is fulfillment, not to have a nest egg. The goal is not the money. The goal is fulfillment. And the only way to use all your resources is to spend all the money, have great health, and be conscious about your life.
In terms of being healthy, what have you found to be the best ROI activities? Gym membership? Is it food?
No. It's walking and hiking by far, because it's free. You actually enjoy it with friends. You can do it with a group. Like, let's go hike. People go in California, Runyon Canyon. Yeah. Let's go hike all these trails around here. You experience nature. You're actually having an experience, like a fulfilling experience, while also improving your health.
Yeah.
And, like all the doctors are like, sitting is death. People like this gym or that gym. I'm just like, free activity. And, running and walking, if walking 3 miles and running 3 miles is almost the same thing, right? It's the same amount of energy. Right? Except for running is inefficient from going up and down. So it's like 10% more or whatever, or how inefficiently you run, 10 to 15. So walking, running, it's just a physics equation, right? And so you're creating a memory, having a fulfilling time, and preparing yourself for future enjoyment by getting yourself in shape in your lung capacity, right? Then, calisthenics and all these other things like that. And so I think that is a very, very, very high ROI is hiking.
What's your skincare routine?
I just wash it and then I put some
very,
oil.
very young.
Oh, well, I think I've been told this. I think one, I have good genetics. I think I'm just lucky. Two, though, I don't smoke. I don't really drink that much. I'm a vegetarian. So I think these things matter, right? And then so like if you're out there smoking, you're up late at night and you're drinking, and then you just hydrate your face, and then you should be okay.
Do you have wear sunscreen? Because you have no wrinkles. It's like
I have some wrinkles here, do this, whatever. Just hydrate your face. Just like get some vitamin E oil, put it on in the morning, and you're fine.
So, like Botox,
10,000 IU,
or like nothing.
You get the Botox. You get the Botox up here,
yeah.
Right? But I still got it right there. But you get the oil, man. Just get the oil. Don't smoke. Do you smoke?
No.
Do you drink a lot?
Rarely.
Just and then just
you might
healthy.
have one drink a month. I mean, that's it.
Eat right, exercise, eating, diet. There's you can't really, as you get older, unless you're an Olympic athlete, you can't outdo your diet, right? It's like 85% of it. You just can't do it. If you're eating a bunch of chemicals, it's going to get you. It's going to pierce through your skin. It's going to your liver. It's going to, it's going to with your metabolism. When you're young, you can, but eventually it catches up.
Do you have any questions for us or any comments?
Yeah, why did you start this podcast?
Well, this was really the brainchild of Jack. back in 2020. My theory is that he saw that Joe Rogan sold his podcast exclusivity to Spotify. And he came to me, he was like, dude, we got to start a podcast. And this was May of 2020. And I said, sure, let's give it a shot. Is that what happened, Jack?
No, that is not what happened.
All right.
Okay, see?
But it was funny because it was like nearly exactly after he sold his podcast is when we first uploaded our video. And like we were, Graham was a finance channel.
Right.
And so the top comment was like, Graham Stephan sees Joe Rogan, sells podcast for 100 million, starts a podcast.
Right.
But in this case, no, it's because I watched a lot of podcasts or I listened to a lot of podcasts.
Right.
Throughout the day, I'd go on a walk and just binge that type of stuff. And I figured that Graham could connect with his audience better if he had a more candid conversation. Because the content he was putting out online was all heavily scripted and planned.
Right.
But I thought he could cultivate a stronger connection with his audience if it was more just kind of impromptu. And we always had kind of funny random banter.
Right.
And people were also aware of my existence, even though I wasn't publicly facing, just because Graham would randomly bring me up.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, well, maybe we could try this out.
What's the number one activities you want to have in your 20s?
I want to travel a lot. That's the only thing is I went on my first ever like real vacation maybe a year and some change ago, and it like I felt like I had finally experienced a sort of happiness and fulfillment that I just didn't even know existed.
Right.
And this was like my first, I would say, awakening, because I never words can't describe how happy I was for like 2 weeks straight, just traveling with my best friend, like going all around. And
you're preaching to the choir. I get it.
And then since then, I'm just like, wow, I want to do that more, And I think that every time I go on a little trip, like I'm not going to enjoy it as much as that first time, but like every single time I get out of and have a purely personal vacation, it's incredible.
Well, you know the saying, travel's the only thing you can spend money on that makes you richer.
That's awesome. Yeah.
What about you?
I would say Japan was definitely a really fun experience. I want to do that again, but I don't know. Part of me, because I was thinking through as you're saying that, like some of my best days are when I just lock myself in the office and just crank out a video. And it's one of those times where it's like you get in the flow state and just you lose track of time and you're so in it. And then at the end of the day, you have like a finished product that I'm really proud of. And then it's fun to put it out there and to see how it does and get like the immediate feedback. So some of my like favorite days are just like being able to have the opportunity to do that.
So
but
creating.
But then I also sometimes don't know if that's because I love the creation process and being in the zone, or if I'm conditioned to feel good about being productive and working.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I think like a lot of people get habituated into, let's say you're selling plastics and you're like, you get good at selling plastics. And then all of a sudden you're like, I love selling plastics. Exactly. And it's like, did I just get inceptioned and habituated to be a rat in a wheel selling plastics and thinking I love selling plastics at the expense of the rest of the world?
I don't know.
Like,
I think people enjoy what they're good at. And that's kind of just like a natural human thing. If you're good at something, it usually ends up being somewhat fun to you.
But then what happens is that you believe that is the thing.
Yeah, see, I don't know.
It could become the thing.
I always love having something to do. And there was this is about a year ago, I painted the entire garage. And the garage is like 20 feet tall. It's like a big garage. And I spent all weekend, I'm probably talking maybe like 18 hours, maybe 20 hours painting this garage. I loved it. But I also don't know if I like just being busy and feeling like I'm doing stuff.
You can do some great travel charity work. You would love that. You would like Doctors Without Borders or, doing some charity work where you're like busy and doing something and fulfilling. Yes, I think you might like it.
But my other thing is that I like having the ability to stop at any point and just return to whatever I was doing. So it's like,
freedom and creativity.
Yeah. So if I had the ability to go across the country, but I could snap my fingers and be back in a heartbeat, I would do it. So I like having that freedom of just, I wake up in the morning and I just say, I want to do this, or I want to do this. And that's some of the hard thing with even traveling on the podcast. Sometimes I'm like, yes, I really want to travel. On other days, I'm like, oh, I just don't feel like it. So it's hard to lock myself in 6 months from now because I don't know how I'm going to feel.
Where do you think you got this fear from? What do you think is driving your fear?
I think I've just naturally always kind of been like this. I mean, because I'm thinking like, I'm trying to go through my childhood. And we certainly didn't have money. And I know money was it was scarce, but I didn't even realize that until probably I was like 15 years old. And my wanting to save money has been around since I was like 5. Like, I do remember my grandpa having like rare coins and me thinking that's so cool that there's like a 1920s penny. So I'm going to save these, or like saving Christmases and birthday money. So I've always been like that. So
It's a great skill to have.
I don't know. Part of me thinks that like maybe I was a bit wired for the propensity of like saving money or delayed gratification. And that's just how my mind works. But I can't think of like there's a trigger point of like, oh, this happened and I like shifted my like, because I've tried to think through this.
So have you, and you don't have to list them all, but if you
Yeah.
have something, when you say delayed gratification, I'm just like, okay, what are you delaying? What's the gratification?
I would
you
say
know
like,
what the prize is.
Like immediately what I really want right now, the only thing I want is a really nice house with a big yard and a view of the Las Vegas Strip with a koi pond somewhere in front.
He's got it down.
with a
Very
whole-
specific.
Yeah, yeah,
He's got it down.
And I check Zillow every day because I'm thinking like, listen, if the perfect house comes up, like I'll jump on it. Like, but it's got to be perfect. But then I'm thinking, okay, that house is probably going to be about $4 to $7 million, let's just say, for like that sort of house with like greenery and it's really inspiring. I'm thinking, do I need that now? No. It's like, it's better for me to like still play it smart, to, optimize what I'm doing with work, to invest the money. And like that house isn't going to go anywhere over the next 10 years.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
it's
as long
always
as you're
going to be
thinking
there.
about it, like you're weighing it out.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to be the most fulfilling, right?
Yeah, so I'm thinking like that's a delayed gratification thing where it's like it would be irresponsible for me to jump on that now when I feel like I could still enjoy that just as much when I'm like 45. Travel is another one where it's like I would love to fly first class. If money were just like nothing and I could snap my fingers, everything is free. Like, yeah, I would love to do that. But at the same time, like business or premium economy, that's what it is. The premium economy is like 80% of the experience for like 10% of the cost. And so I look at that and I'm thinking that's a better deal.
Yeah.
So I do the premium economy.
Just curious, Graham,
Yeah.
when you have those days where you lock in,
Yeah.
and I know you enjoy these, and I don't doubt that for a second, but do you have like memory dividends from those days?
Certain days, yeah. So here's a good example of this. When the Japanese yen was absolutely collapsing, it was like 11 p.m. at night, East Coast. And I was telling Jack, dude, I got to get out a video on this. I got to get it out. And Jack's like, it really doesn't make any difference either way. If like if you post the video, great. If you don't post the video, like it's not going to make a material change in your life. And I was like, you know what? That's true. But man, I had a great time filming that video. And even the memory card, I filmed the whole video and the memory card corrupted. And I had to refilm this thing and edit at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
I look back at that, and it was a fantastic
I
video.
remember
I'm
that
really
time
proud
period
of that.
because I was sending notes in our Tokyo travel group and we're like, we should go back to Japan now. It's on
Yeah.
sale. We can have the same experience for like 20% off,
Yeah. But certain times like that, I'm so glad I did that because I remember that. I had a great time. I spent like an hour setting up in an Airbnb, like a little studio set with just whatever I could find in the kitchen. That was a great time. I even did this last night and my memory card corrupted again.
I don't know.
It's terrible.
You might have to invest in a new system.
The first time was a fluke. The second time wrong setting on the camera.
Did you guys go to Team Labs Borderless in Tokyo?
Love Team Labs.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Did
Amazing.
you do Team Labs?
No.
That's the
I wasn't able to.
interactive
I know
contemporary
exactly what it
art
is.
museum.
Yeah.
But which one did you do? Did you go to Borderless?
No, I just went to the one
They have Planets and Borderless.
Planets.
You got to go to Borderless.
Okay.
Borderless is the real deal.
Okay. I'll do
I mean,
that.
Planets is great. I mean, Borderless is next.
I will 100% do that. Yeah.
Because it
He's
was
going to
closed for a
Japan.
while. They were
I'm
redoing
going.
it.
Yeah, I'm going to go later this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, Team Labs Borderless is just absurd. It's absurd.
Where's
We'll
your
have to try
favorite
that.
place to travel?
Wow. It depends on what type of vacation you have. Like Japan is my favorite. I did the countryside. I did Kyoto, Fukuoka, Tokyo. Visited with the geishas in Kyoto.
Yeah.
It was amazing. But that's a different type of trip. The reason why I love Japan so much is it's like a modern culture, first world culture that is completely different than any place else. Right? I think you would have had that experience before they became a monoculture in the world. Like when you go to Europe, you go in some place, you're going to hear hip hop, right? Like it's very, they're losing the distinct the French being the French. I mean, there's French things, right? French culture, Germans being Germans. I think in the 40s and 50s, it was very distinct and very unique and not Americanized so much. But Japan is wildly different, right? And modern. So it's kind of odd, right? The way they think, the whole existence of it. And it's really amazing to discover. But the Med is amazing. Like Italy, the Amalfi Coast, that whole area is an amazing playground. Amazing to go to Discovery, go to Pompeii, learn all kinds of different terrain, Greece, that whole area, then into the other side. Croatia is amazing. I mean, that whole European area. Then also I love Denmark and Amsterdam in the summer, only in the summer.
Okay.
Europe's great. There's a lot of travel around there.
Is there anywhere you wouldn't go?
I think I wouldn't go places where the death rate or was extremely high. Like I would even go to places where it's like, this is going to be a struggle. Like I'm not going to like it at first, like resistant, but just to do it, you know what I mean? And feel it. The last time I went on safari, there were so many bugs in my room. It was crazy. And I'm not a bug guy. And then by the third day, I was like, okay, I'm used to these bugs. Like it was in a nice place, but our roof, the thatch roof, got infested with termites, and then the bugs could get in.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was just like the net and the bugs and cups and shower bugs everywhere. But but safari is amazing. I highly recommend safari. Before you die, do safari.
And your least favorite place to travel? Like if you were to name or call out a destination and say this was not worth it, or I didn't like it and I would not go back again.
I think anything that's designed for tourists, like I didn't like going on a cruise. I mean, I see the value play in it, et cetera, but it wasn't me. I could do that when I'm 80, you know what I mean? Or 75, right? Like it's like basically taking like a little bit of America, sticking on a boat and doing this thing on a boat with a bunch of people.
Sure.
Doesn't have to be on a boat.
Consuming, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you're on their schedule. So you have to get on and off the boat on their schedule. And at first you're like, this is great. Like, look at all this food. And then like 10 pounds later, when you get off the boat, you're like, what the did I just do to myself? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's very canned. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Now I could see myself like later in life really enjoying like the peace of a cruise, and the food's over there. It's always there. There's always food out and snacks out and everything being your spot. And America is just cramped on this thing and you're just enjoying the view. But at this age, I hated it. I hated it. Now, maybe it was the type of cruise I was on, but I wouldn't do it. So anything like that.
What do you think of what the fire community has become?
I mean, I think fire is a great skill set, especially like there's no fire in Japan. Like this is them. They save, they give to their community. They don't, you know what I mean? Like they have a simple life. They understand the concept of enough, et cetera. And I think when Your Money or Your Life, when that came out, which launched the fire community, that's kind of like their Bible, right? I think they went into the extreme. It's become this like, how can I refreeze popcorn to get the popcorn out, right? And it's a lot of people, it's become savings porn, right? Which, Your Money or Life was about getting in touch with your values and having a fulfilling life. That's what the book is about, right? And it suggests ways at which you can do that, like even taking less salary by not commuting as much and looking at your hourly wage, right? And I think the fire community has kind of lost that, right? They've gone on to this like a version of, not completely, but a version of is like, I'm going to do 15 years in Sing Sing. And then when I get out, I'm going to live the life, and I won't have to work anymore, et cetera. And I'm like, listen, while you're in jail, life is passing you by. You're not meant to be in any kind of jail, whether it's your own jail of your mind that you're creating by not enjoying life now, or actually going into Sing Sing for some like prize, so some Mr. Beast prize. I got $50 million, so somebody would do 15 years in jail, that type of thing. And so that's my criticism of the fire movement. On the flip side, though, here in America, there is an epidemic of careless and wasteful spending and people living above their means and not thinking consciously about earning and saving. And so that's the good part about the fire movement. But I think it teaches people to be like, not live their life.
So what if a person says, hey, I went 30 grand into debt so I could go and travel the world, But now my credit cards are all maxed out. I'm making $20 an hour. It's going to take me a decade to pay this thing off, but I had an epic time.
Might be worth it. I don't know. It's really about like, I would go into debt if that was the experience that I could have. And it depends. Like the FIRE people are doing it in reverse, right? They're like, I'm going to grind out for 20 years and then I'm going to have this great trip. And this guy's like, I went into debt and I'm going to have to grind this way, right? Isn't it the same thing, right? Like
I guess so. Yeah.
It's a version of autopilot, right? Like they didn't think it through. It's like maybe there was a better way to do this or maybe that was a proper way to do it, you know? Right? They're just doing it in reverse, right? They're just grinding it out. And then when I'm 45, I'm going to have this great, wonderful life, right? Like, and this guy's like, no, I'll go into debt and I'll grind it out later, right? Struggling, flipping burgers or whatever, right? But I think there's an in-between conscious way to think about this. Is like where experiences belong, where, what are my resources? What are my future resources going to be like? And how do I allocate my resources through this period, right? That's the real way to do it, right? Not like give up 10 years of your life so that you die with 10 years of your life to go to taxes and whoever randomly is going to get it, you know? So I think, you know, FIRE is great and America needs more FIRE than it needs the latter, but we need to be a little bit more conscious and intentional about these things. And I think FIRE is great that it helps people get in touch with their values, right? When you start shedding the marketing and the right? I think they get more in touch with their values of what matters to them. They lose their ego, which is a great thing, et cetera. But they kind of get into this robotic thing, right? This kind of like addiction. See, look how much money I have. 3%. Look, I did this. But on the flip side, as much as I mock that, right? These guys are finding out all the hacks, right? Like I often say that, you know, I can be on a super yacht in the Amalfi Coast or whatever, and somebody somewhere is on a boat, on a ferry, having the same experience, soaking it all in and enjoying it, right? They're getting the same fulfillment and they're with their buddies and they're having a great time, right? So I think at all income levels, you can have that adventurous and fulfilling life, right? And you can top grade it and glaze it over if you want as you make more money, right? And so I think what the FIRE guys do is they figure out like, you bought a house for this? Well, I found this deal. And you got a mortgage for that. And I found this deal. And like, you're buying shirts from here, like shirts online for this, right? And so like,
reverse image search and find a
very accurate.
So what they're doing is they're reducing amount of life you have to give up for this level of fulfillment. And that's a subcategory of like the wealth, right? And so
it's funny. That's me to a T.
Yeah. That's
like trying to figure out what is the best value for every single thing I could spend.
I could use you. I could use it. Could be like, you know, this $1 million is going to go a lot further in fulfillment, right? Like they're in the, I'm at the top level, right? Like I'm like your wealth, health, and time. And these guys are at us optimizing one of the columns, right? They're optimizing the wealth bucket so that for every dollar you spend, you get that much more fulfillment.
Yeah.
So what I would tell these guys, like, let's not do without, but let's just find the most efficient way to do it. Like, let's still get all these things, right? Let's still go to the club, but let's find the cheaper, more fun club with the better specials, right? You know what I mean?
It's funny.
The bottles here are $6,000. The bottles here are $2,000.
I posted a whole video on this 7 years ago. I went through all of my expenses and talked about ways to optimize them. And one of mine was like, I had a buddy who got a Thanksgiving bonus of like $200. This is when I was like 21 years old. Spent it all at the bar. The entire thing that night. I was like, it's ridiculous because you could have the same experience had he just gotten a bottle from the grocery store for $20. The whole thing, split it with his friends.
Oh, this is something I learned from Dan.
Yeah, just do that.
So
then you go to the bar and like, that's what I would do. I would never spend money at the bar. I would always just get a bottle from the grocery store. And
sometimes you can have the bar
in the parking lot.
Sometimes in the bar
experience. In the parking lot. But then go into the bar and then I just order waters the entire night.
Well, this is one of the things you said, what I learned from Dan. And Dan would be like, look, why would you spend all this money in a club? We can spend like that much money, control the environment, have a party at our place, rent a place, have a party. You control the environment. You control the guest list. You are the man. So you have all the girls there, et cetera, right? You're the one throwing the party, et cetera, as opposed to like one dude at a many, right? And like, those are the things you would do is like, why would you spend thousands and thousands of dollars, keep going to a club with, take that, throw one party and you are the man.
The other thing that reminded me of going out to restaurants. throughout my early 20s, I would never want to spend money at restaurants, but I still wanted the experience of going out with friends to restaurants. So what I would do is I would eat at home beforehand, but then go to the restaurant and order the least expensive thing on the entire menu, which is usually like a $10 salad.
Right.
And then what I would do is I'd bring cash. Because what would happen is that everyone would be like, oh my God, how do we split the bill? We have to throw in a credit card. And I don't want to throw in a credit card when their bills are like $100. Mine should be 10. So I'll bring like $20 cash and I throw in my 20. I'm like, all right, I'm set. I don't have to worry about splitting this check.
They
but I
hated
get the
him.
same
Both the
experience.
restaurant and his friends. But yeah, I get it.
There was one time even, this is going to sound awful. There was one time I went to the restaurant and I asked them if I could bring in
Look at him.
a Subway. And I brought in a Subway because there's a Subway, like a few little...
They let you bring in the Subway?
They let me bring in a Subway.
Jesus.
Now, listen, I was in a group of like 12 people. So I just asked for a plate.
That's very
They
nice
brought me
of
a
them.
plate. It was super nice. I mean, I left a tip, but I brought in a Subway and my meal was $6, whereas everyone else's was like $40. It's the same experience.
I don't know if it's the same experience because you're not eating the same food.
I loved
the communal.
I love
You've tried
Subway.
the pasta.
The chicken and bacon ranch is delicious.
And the thing is, he also plays the waiting game, and he's like a scavenger where if they don't finish the food, he'll also get a little taste at the end.
Oh my gosh.
I have a thing for food waste. I hate wasting food. And so sometimes I'll see someone order like a big steak or something like this. They eat half and then they send it back to be thrown away. And I'm like, that's $50 worth of food that they're throwing away in the trash that I would be happy to eat.
For granted, it's always about increasing value. So like, as long as he's better off, he's just better. Steak right here. Yeah, you took a bite out of this carrot. Oh, okay, like, you know, if I could avoid your teeth marks in the carrot,
I see that as
me
getting paid for doing nothing. So let's just say in that situation, we're all out to eat at a dinner. We're all paying for our own meals. And you have half a steak that you're going to throw away. And your half of steak is worth $40. Me having your half a steak that would be thrown away is the equivalent to me making $40. That's how I see it.
I mean, you're not wrong. But, you know, there is some entrepreneur out there who built this restaurant, whose hopes and dreams, that he doesn't want them to be inefficient. He wants them to eat the whole thing, but they didn't, that you're crushing. Because you're taking up the chair. That could be another patron who's a paying patron. And you're robbing him of his services indirectly. So, I mean, you're what you're saying is correct. You are getting paid. This is full optimizing your gaming, but you're over the entrepreneur. You know what I mean?
But the food's going to be thrown away. So it's
then
their work is wasted. Isn't their work
Let's
better
put it
off
down
being
at the bottom
enjoyed?
of this video. Please don't waste food. Order appropriately. You know, don't waste food.
Yeah.
Order appropriately. We can put that at the bottom, and then you can go in and you can order your own food and support the business.
Yeah, but to Jack's point, though, there are some people that I would consistently go out with, and they would always have like half of their food thrown away. So I got in the habit of, there's no sense in me ordering.
You sound like my mom. My
because-
mom was like, where's some members of depression?
Yeah, but
You know?
I personally wouldn't order because I knew if there's 4 people that I'm eating with.
This is
that's
amazing.
2 full meals because they throw it away.
This is
And
going to be
so-
on the cutting room
they're
floor,
all
isn't
eating
it?
and
This
just
is not
turning
going to
and
make the
seeing Graham
episode.
licking his chops beside them. They're like, oh, you know what? Actually, you can.
It
have
started
this.
to
Like,
be a running joke, but like, but they would come over and throw away the food, like, and I say, "Oh wait, actually, could we get all this to go?"
You should
And
just
I would eat for like
stand
days.
outside and panhandle for scraps. Why pretend? Just stand outside and panhandle for scraps. People definitely be like, just stand out and be like, hey, whatever you don't eat, because you pack it up and go. And they will do that.
I wish there were a service that would just go around restaurants and be like, whatever you're about to throw away, just put in this side of the restaurant.
They
and
have
we'll
that. They do
repack
have
it.
that for the homeless. Like they do give that out. There are those services. They're generally for the homeless, not you. But you know, you could start a new trend.
I heard that they're not allowed to give that food to homeless because
No, some
if
of
they
them-
get sick from it. Now it's the
not the
responsibility.
half-eaten ones, no, but the ones that are not sold.
Okay.
So
I'm talking-
Graham will take the stuff that the homeless people reject.
Well, they won't
homeless
allow.
people
They won't allow.
That legally take.
The homeless people can't even ingest.
Yes,
this,
but like
Graham
if you
will.
stand outside the restaurant and be like, "Hey, whatever you don't eat, could you put it in a go?" I'm sure
Yeah.
everybody will.
If it were not for people like Jack and my wife just getting really embarrassed by that, and for like social norms, like I would be doing a lot of this stuff.
I feel you. Like the hive
know?
mind is like, "No, this isn't right," and you're like, "No, this is
Well,
right."
I hold back out of fear of embarrassing the people
Thank you,
around
and
me.
I appreciate that. Sometimes, like
Jack.
even last night, like which is fine, but like we
What
were
did I do
checking
last
into our
night?
hotel,
Oh.
and like the the guy was like, "Oh, do you live here in Texas?" And Graham's like, "No, why?" And he's like,
You
"Oh,
said
because
no.
I said no, why? I'm not gonna lie." And then he said, "Oh, because there's a locals discount." And Graham's like, "Oh, well, in that case, we live here in Texas." And then the guy was
Said it
like,
in a very joking way.
the guy was like, "Oh, ha ha ha." And Graham's like, "No, seriously, like, do you guys have a discount or anything?" He's like, "Yeah, it's a little bit of a discount." And Graham's like, "Well, what?" Like, the guy's kind of trying to like swat him away like a fly. Like, "Oh, like."
He was laughing.
He was laughing.
playing along
Like,
with it.
granted, I'm making it sound worse than it is.
He
He was
really
kind of
is.
laughing and playing along a little bit, but still, like, if I get one rejection for like Graham, like, probably asked. Finally, on his like third or fourth time of like, what will we have to do, to try to get a little.
Well,
bit
with this restaurant thing, he's going to save more money than he ever made because he's going to fucking be getting free food. He's like, well, I view that as $40. I'm like, he keeps doing things like this.
And they ended up giving us, some sort of a discount at least.
Yeah, they did.
It is nice.
successful.
But he was, successful.
But
But he
still
was laughing along. It wasn't that. Jack said, no, we didn't. And I'm like, do we get a discount if we do? And the guy said, yeah. And I'm like, well, in that case, yeah, I guess we live in Texas. And he laughed at it. And then I jokingly said something like, are you able to apply something if we're like visiting friends in Texas? He's like, you know what? Yeah, I could do that. Like something like that.
To me, it's just like, I don't know, maybe it's an ego thing too, but I'm like, I just don't like defying social norms.
Well, I think it's negotiate, like hotels and mattresses, you can always negotiate on. Always. So he's found something, right? Like that one's, and your ego's like, I don't want to look like an idiot. You should lose that part. But like the food one,
yeah, pick and choose battles. Maybe.
I mean, we're going further and further along the spectrum.
See, almost anywhere I go, if I'm alone, I ask for the employee discount. But I want to say, like, discount tire. Oh my gosh, I saved like $300 recently, just because I was joking with the guy, and I'm like,
I need this guy in my life.
If there's
like
an employee
he's
discount.
gonna.
But I want to.
You are a subroutine that needs to be running, and everybody needs that subroutine to a certain degree.
But I'm never a Karen about it. But it's always a really joking, friendly sort of like, hey man, could we hook this up, or like. But usually they're all like, all right, yeah, okay. And then they type in like a few things, and then
they're never like, of course, man, I'd love to give you the same thing I'm giving everyone else, but for a little bit cheaper. Like they're never like enthusiastic to do it. But
enterprise, Jack, that you benefited from that.
So this got me to a question, like a question for both of you that I think is like, it seems like you spend a lot of time and a lot of mental energy on the saving side. Mm-hmm. How much mental energy do you spend on the revenue side?
Just as much.
Because I went the opposite way. When I read Your Money or Your Life, it was like, all these frugal exercises and saving money. I went that way. But what it really wanted me to do is like, oh, there's another way to solve for this problem. Having so much money that you don't give a such that it's not worth my time to even ask for the discount. Like the 2 minutes speaking for the discount. Wow, I've lost so much money.
Yes and no. I see my time as having different values throughout different times of the day. Like right now, my time is really, really, really valuable. But at 10 p.m. at night, my time is worthless for the most part. So if my time is worthless, I may as well utilize that time effectively. Same thing with on an airplane. My time is worth 0. So I try to do an activity where at least it's not worth 0. So if I'm out at AutoZone getting my tires replaced, it's going to be, I'm there regardless. So like spending that extra 2 minutes is going to be the same thing. So I may as well optimize it.
I can see some of the variable value in a person's time. I don't do that as much, but to that extent. But I do realize like my free time is way, way, way more valuable than my work time because that's the reward, and you don't want to fuck up the reward. So it's like time with my daughters. If something comes up, I'm just like everything's out, right? Unless I absolutely have to, higher obligation or made a commitment. But if it's like, oh, these things that are going to go away and I'm going to get to spend less time with, if they like, oh yes, I will spend time with you. Everything stops. So there is some variable in the value of time, but not that much.
It might be different with kids. Would you say that's the case?
Oh yeah, it's always. I mean,
okay.
It's really your priority stack, right? Like you'll have this priority stack. Whatever is going on, your kids, your family, your friends, your hobbies, your interests, your work, whatever, and you'll arrange this priority stack. And they have the way to interrupt your subroutines, right? Like this one, the highest one can interrupt this one can interrupt this one, and it shouldn't go this way, that much. Very, very, very hard to go this way, very easy to interrupt going that way, right? And so that's kind of the way I look at it, the mental model I have in my head. But even with you can get to a wealth level or earnings level where none of it matters. You won't waste the time. Like, people write these things like if Bill Gates dropped $100, it wouldn't be worth the time that he spent to pick up the $100 type of thing. I mean, that's kind of like this big extreme example, but you can get to where it's like, it's not worth negotiating. It's not worth even talking about. It's not worth wasting the neurons even thinking about it. That's kind of what I wanted, right? That was, I haven't gotten there, but that's the goal, right? Like, I don't worry about it. I don't ask the price. Not worried about the price. It's not going to affect my life. I have a problem. In the beginning when we were talking about like, this guy has a need to spend money and the only way he can immediately search out is $10,000 bottle at the club, right? Like I have a need to convert it into experiences and I can't really focus on the savings part, right? That's where I wanted to be. And so I wonder, you say you spend a lot on the revenue side, but do you spend, what would you say is more, revenue or savings?
I would say what would you say? Probably 50-50?
Yeah, savings.
I save more time on savings.
Yeah, I would say a substantial amount more on savings. Like,
I don't
like
think
we,
so.
I'll
day to day.
I'll come to Graham for like a certain deal or this or that, and he's like, yeah, whatever you think, and which is fine because I like to have control over stuff like that. But at the same point, like Graham will spend. I mean, how much time have you spent, on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, looking at the price of a certain vehicle, and you're like, it's just not it's just not that great of a deal. Like, it's just not that great of a deal. Like on Zillow, like all of these things, scouring to just try to save a little bit more money on something you could potentially buy.
Doing that.
Yeah, which is
my
fine,
guilty pleasure, Cars and Bids or Bring a Trailer. And I look at certain cars that I've wanted, and I'm like, if it sells at that price, I can't say no to it. I love a deal. So it's like everything at a certain price, I'm like, I'm a buyer of that.
But the difference is if you spent all of that time that you've spent on Bring a Trailer, you could probably buy the cars that you're looking at,
right.
on increasing
revenue.
So
but then
I'm going to agree with him. I'm going to say and I'm going to pay you like kind of a backhanded compliment. I would think at your level of intelligence and hustle, et cetera, that you are incorrectly allocating your mental energy on savings because the revenue side that you can yield would blow away the savings, right? So he's saying you're spending over 50% time thinking about savings. And it was like, if you just focus your mental energy on like, how can I generate revenue, like significant capital, like more money than you actually need to live, I think you would be successful, and I think it would dwarf all your savings.
What about the enjoyment of the hunt and feeling proud of a purchase?
That is a thing for Graham.
Yeah, like there's the cars that I bought, I'm like, that was a great price. Like that was a good, and I wouldn't have found those deals.
Graham, I for his Ford GT, I could see a little like sparkle in his eye.
Yeah, there's another.
Let me put it to you this way. I think you have probably superior mental acuity than me. How would it feel to buy 100 of those cars and not care? How about the enjoyment?
I wouldn't need 100.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, or 100 or other things. How would it know to feel like your kid is going to college and not have to worry about things? How would that feel? Do you think you get fulfillment from that?
But so my counter to that would be, to me, it seems like a disrespect of money.
No, you're disrespecting your mental neurons and the allocation of it. We're just talking about fulfillment.
Yeah.
And you're saying, I love getting a deal on a car and doing that. I was like, do you like traveling? Are there other things you like in life? I mean, I'm not saying that that's not fulfillment.
Sure.
I mean, it's nice, but you don't have to do that all the time, right? Like there's other things in life. And I'm just saying that if you allocated your mental neurons to the revenue side, given how bright you are, right, and the hustle you have and your work ethic, okay, that it would dwarf the fulfillment of getting the deals that you're getting. I'm just pointing that out.
Please.
And that might not be true, right? Like it'd be wrong. So I'm just saying, like, from the outside, a guy knows I could be dead wrong. Perkins, you don't know what the you're talking about. A lot of times I don't know what I'm fucking talking about. I'm just saying that I think you're misallocating your resources. Like if I got to play the game of your life,
sure,
with your resources and your abilities, right? Like focus on saving deals all the time or spend time dreaming up ways and reviewing deals and making money. I'd be like, this one. This is the more fulfilling life. 50-50 or 80-20. I like 80-20 this way. So I think just from an allocation, your mental you have finite mental capacity, right? Finite hours, right? I would just say that I think you're over allocated the wrong way.
Okay.
I could be dead wrong, right? But I'm just saying, and you're like, well, I get fulfillment out of it. I'm like, well, there's a lot of fulfillment in $10 million, right? And you're the type of guy that can make $10 million in a year. And so is he.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I don't know if it's the enjoyment of saving, or I don't know if I'm programmed to think that I enjoy that because that's all I know.
I would
Or that's
bet
what I'm
a lot of
comfortable
money it's the programming.
I mean, I've known him a long time, and I've said the same thing over and over again, that is programming, but he really does enjoy a deal. And I'm not just saying this to defend him. I'm just saying, like,
Well, he's well programmed.
that could be it too.
He is very, very
well programmed.
And the only thing that I feel like as a friend that I could recommend to him, and I want to hear your perspective on this, is that he should get uncomfortable a little bit more often. Because at this point in Graham's life, he has a very, very strong tie to just being comfortable. And it boils down to things as simple as like the temperature in a room. But I feel like what it comes down to is never trying something new and challenging yourself. It's like you've been rewarded financially.
That's where the growth is, right?
Yes. And that's why I think like maybe, just maybe you try to like spend some money and just see if you like it. Maybe you try, like when you got uncomfortable and you skipped a posting and you decreased the upload frequency on your main channel, your life has improved drastically and it took you years to get there. But realistically, you could have done it 2 years before. You really, really could have.
I beg to differ on
a year before. Like it didn't need to be exactly at that time. And I think that and not going all in with trying something new and getting uncomfortable, but doing little like experiences and trying out small things every once in a while to get
or even focusing on the revenue side. Like you don't have to go 80-20 like I said. You can just spend 10% more. I mean, there's just like a lot there's a lot, like you're just like, I really enjoy you get a deal. And like, I'm pretty sure your audience would be like, yeah, there is a lot of fulfillment in $10 million. Like, what are you talking about? Like if I told you for a fact, okay, let's just take all the risk out of it, that if Graham only focused 20% of your mental energy on savings and 80% on like making money, revenue ideas, deals, whatever, and you are guaranteed to have $10 million extra, would you take that deal?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you already agree that if the reward is 10 million, so somewhere between $0 and $10 million, it makes sense. You should calculate what that is and then see if it's achievable and then run it out.
Yeah.
You follow me? Like that's just consciously thinking about, like, we just poo-pooed it right away. No, I get it. I enjoy getting a deal. I'm like, well, let's think about this for a second, right? Somewhere between $0 and $10 million, you should be spending more of your time focusing on revenue. And then we should think about what's realistic. And I think that, not immediately, like nobody's going to learn how to play piano overnight, but I think there's like a lot of yield in your time. Like everything you create, it comes from out of your mind. This whole podcast, all your success, right? You don't go dig ditches or you're not a construction worker or whatever. It all comes from here, right? And then you executing on that, right? So more of that is more revenue. And you've gotten comfortable where you're at. And you're like, all my fulfillment comes from making deals. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of fulfillment in having the capital and being able to spend that. And also obligations, future obligations have to be met. You said you want a big family. Well, it's a lot of obligations. So you should think about that. And then maybe you might go, well, 10% more on revenue side, mental focus, or 20% or 30% or 80%, or maybe even 90, more than Bill said, right? Because that's kind of the conversation I had with myself, right? Like, am I going to save myself into the life I want? And the answer was no, not the life I wanted. Maybe some people can, but I couldn't. I wasn't going to save it. I'm like, I'm going to have to take big risk and make a lot of money.
It's weird. Not to dig too much into like my own personal matters, but like I think I've already done that where I'm like, I'm spending an amount that I'm comfortable with, assuming a 50% market drop, like, family obligations come up, you have a kid with a disability that needs some care. And it's like all of these things happen at the same time. I'm talking like, and then our income goes to zero. And so I'm like, in that case, can I still live the exact same? And if the answer to that is yes, then I'm comfortable and then I'm good.
Right. Well, then you need no more. There's no, then the answer would be, honestly, that no, copy, paste, repeat. Like, I'm not here to change your life. Sure. I'm not here to save your life, right? I'm just here to tell you that there are ways that you can look at things and see like, hey, yes, $10 million, I have use for it. What you're saying is, I don't have use for $10 million. I'm happy. I don't have any wants.
Well, the thing is, 10 could be 5. And then at 5, at a 4% withdrawal rate, that's $200,000.
Hey, there he goes. Here he goes.
After tax, now you're with 170, and then
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, however you convert it to fulfillment is your way. Like whether you spend it on or 4% a year on getting deals at restaurants, that's up to you, right? I'm just saying, like, where is the best allocation of your resources? right? And right now we're talking about your health and roughly your
correct.
mental health, right? Where are you sending these neurons? What problems should your neurons be working on? And it seems like your neurons are heavily focused on saving.
Mhm.
And I'm like, those are some really good neurons, right, Jack? These are good neurons.
Well,
All right,
no,
they're all right.
they're good. They're
They're all right. He's got some good neurons, right? Like you guys got good neurons together with your friend, together, these neurons. I'm like, should I focus those neurons on the revenue side? Me, evil Bill Perkins, right? I'm like, give me those neurons. Let's focus on the revenue side. No more standing outside trying to get leftovers.
Yeah.
You know what
Listen,
I mean?
I could commit to a few months of trying that out. Like 2 months as an experiment.
And what is that going to look like in application?
I would say instead of being so focused on the saving little aspects here and there, of just being more focused on the revenue generating side.
Yeah, but he needs
So
an action
without-
plan. Like, what is that? We're going to meet on Tuesday and go through ideas, stocks, investments, business building. Like, what are we going to, like, tell me, what are the things you're going to do? I mean, we don't
Probably
have
just
to lay
be
that
less
now, but
focused-
you should commit to that.
It would probably just be less focused on like the little tiny details, which maybe that frees up an extra 10% where
Yeah, but the
It
brain
gets
has to
applied
then
somewhere.
take those neurons and apply them to like, what is your action plan? But we don't have to go into that right now. But like offline, you guys should be like, okay, every X day at whatever o'clock, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to go over these things and get action items on like whatever, and we're going to execute on one of these plans.
Well, I'd say one of the biggest ones is office space. Jack and I right now don't have an office. It's out of a bedroom, which I love. It's convenient, but it also doesn't lend itself to working together.
How does that yield more money? Because we're focused on the revenue side.
Yeah.
Whereas back in the day, like someone would come up with an idea and the amount of time between idea and execution was a lot longer because we had a text and, I'd only see Graham once a week or this or that. But I think that if we had an office where we were all meeting in person,
You're 100% right.
the speed by which things will get done is a lot faster.
So the way I'm understanding it is that if you put out more content, it equals more revenue. And your audience grows.
More content, but also just like in terms of just like communication and coming up with, guest ideas.
Better
and then,
content, yes.
Yeah.
So you have more content, better guest ideas, better quality show, better execution, more money.
So here's what holds me back from a finance perspective. We have it so well in the house. It's easy. There's no commute. The cost of each episode to produce is like a few grand as it is. And I'm like, if we tack an office on top of that.
The cost per episode.
Now the cost per episode more than doubles because we don't film every episode in our office. We film maybe half of them in the office and then the other half of them in the home studio and then the other half on the road like we are right now. And so if we only film 2 episodes a month in an office space that we now rent, the cost per episode skyrockets. And now our threshold is so high. And I'm like, do we need that?
Well, it depends on the production value and what goes into it. And the only answer is it net more revenue? And does it grow the platform more?
I would say the quality is going to be the same. I don't think quality's maybe a marginal
quality will
improvement.
be improved a little bit.
Slightly.
I think the main thing is just that we're kind of talking every day. You know what I mean?
So idea generation.
Yeah.
Idea generation, yeah.
So what he would say on his argument, using his neurons, he would say that why don't we just have a mandatory Zoom every day that we discuss this, and it's a 20-minute Zoom, and that will solve the idea generation without having an office.
We could. I don't think we would. Like I think like we can come up.
You don't think you would?
I don't think we would do the Zoom. No, we'd be like, I don't really have anything to talk about today. But if we're like in the office and we're just kind of working on something, this is interesting, and then I run it by him.
So you're saying that like, what if you had a mandatory meeting place that you went to? So it wasn't an office, but like every X time we have to go to Starbucks or wherever the place that people hang out and
that could work out.
The thing is, when you pay for something, you're going to value and use it more. And it's one of the, like an expensive gym membership where it's like, oh man, if I don't use it, now I'm wasting money. That's how that's a motivator for me.
If that's what you need to get him to go to ideate to create the more money, then I guess that's the only way you can do it if you can't force yourself to meet at a meeting place or whatever. But like this whole exercise, and I'm not saying that you come to the exercise, is that this is how you should be spending your neurons more so than the food example.
Yeah.
That's just my 2 cents, right? Like I think that's what's going to drive you to the level of comfort that you aspire to live and the level of pickleball travel that you want to live, more so than saving.
Panhandling for half-eaten sushi.
Panhandling, I've panhandled before as an exercise.
How was that?
It was eye opening. It was awakening, and it helped me realize that no matter what, you can make money.
Were people nice to you?
No, it was a little dangerous. It was a dangerous job. A lot of people were nice, and there was some danger associated with it.
What happened?
Oh, there were some like gangbangers that were going to me up,
Why?
like get out of the street or do whatever. You know what I mean? Like just because you're low, because they can, right? Humans are humans, and there were people who were very nice and very sweet.
How much did you make?
Enough to be on pace to make like $60,000 to $70,000 a year tax free.
Whoa.
Right. But I stopped the experiment. It was part of an emotional intelligence class, right? Like facing your fears about things. And I went out and did it, and it was very liberating. And I was just like, yeah, you're just going to be all right.
And that was meant to teach people that no matter what,
it was my exercise.
Something.
No,
okay.
it wasn't like everybody does this exercise.
I see. Okay.
It was like my exercise. Like some people had to go to something way high, whatever. Like, but like it was a great exercise. It was like, this is a hard job.
Yeah.
But it's a lucrative job.
Was there an effective way, like a sign that
I didn't even have a sign.
Or
Like I was, that's why I was like, oh, I know I can really crush it if I had a sign.
What's like the optimal way to panhandle?
I don't know. I was only out there for like one day, a couple hours.
You
like,
guys see Graham out on the corner.
Graham's gonna kind of. He's like,
Okay,
some
what
haggard
freeway is
clothing,
the
like-
best?
I think a sign would be better. I think looking destitute is fine, but not completely like disheveled or smelly or like scary. And being at a very busy intersection, and that has a light, and that allows people to give you money. So I think it's always going to boil down to a numbers game.
That reminded me. I remember in 2009, I believe it was, I would get off a freeway exit in Studio City on a regular basis, driving from Glendale to Beverly Hills. And there was a guy who was constantly on the side of the freeway, but he wore a suit, like a decent looking suit. He wore glasses, clean cut sort of guy, but he said he lost his job. Like on the sign, he says like he lost his job looking for work, anything helps. And the fact that he wore a suit and seemed clean cut, I'm like, this is the guy who gets my money. So like usually what I do is I'd pack Nutri-Grain bars actually on my drive, knowing that when he's there, I give him a Nutri-Grain bar or I give him a water or something like that. But
yeah,
that just popped into my mind like that?
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, the answer is I don't know. I don't think
Yeah,
like
he could just be
90
like
minutes or 2 hours out there or
just
whatever
buying
time I was out
Hops
there.
in his Ferrari and goes straight to.
You don't know. That one lady pretended to be disabled.
Yeah.
And then you see her just like wheeling off a few blocks.
I mean, if you're going to be
gets up and,
disingenuous, yeah, you
hops
can do
into
all
a
kinds of
Mercedes,
things, right?
and
Like,
she was making like $100,000 a year.
you can,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you can do well. I mean, but I think that would be an effective allocation of your mental resources. But I could see him like
if it's
maybe,
fulfilling.
yeah, I could see him like gamifying it and getting some fulfillment out of it
Just
and then justifying
optimizing,
it.
yeah. I like I like optimization.
It's like, yeah, I go on a hike in the morning and then I panhandle for half an hour. And then I,
My time is worth zero anyway. And
yeah, he's got this zero time calculator going. Anyway, I don't have that many. I can ask a zillion questions, but I don't want to take up all our
How
time.
about this? If you guys enjoy this episode, if you want a round 2 at some point, let us know in the comments section. I'll do my best to read
I think you guys had
comments
enough.
as
You're like,
possible.
I can't take this. I can't take this sushi ramen. But if you do, we can do it. We can do a round 2.
Yeah, and also for anyone who made it to this point in the episode, because I'm really curious about the retention graphs. If you've made it to this point, if you wouldn't mind giving us a comment, let us know you made it to the end. That would be awesome.
Also, what you liked and what you disliked. That would also be
please.
very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want.
Well, you gotta edit up and put bookmarks. People gotta skip around.
we
There's
do
a lot
that.
of work.
Yeah.
that goes
Yeah.
into it.
So, and we're also going to link to all of your info in the description along with your book. I highly recommend it, by the way. And if you want to be a part of the group, The Index, that link is also down below.
The index, huh?
Yeah.
What goes on in the index?
So,
Oh dear, he's like, why did you
What?
ask?
why? Why are you
There's our
doing this?
third index slot in the video.
We could cut it if you
No,
want
no.
to. Yeah.
The Index is an amazing group. I attended
Yeah,
it was
you did.
Disneyland, and
Mhm.
there was like a tour and then a very fancy dinner. Like Graham said, he dropped
Yeah.
40,000. The idea of the group is to get a bunch of young, wealthy people together to have experiences.
I like it.
And a lot of the money that is paid by the members of the group gets cycled into these really lavish
We
experiences.
do really unique experiences that I would never do on my own, but I could justify it in a group like this.
Because you get the discount.
Because I get the discount, but then I reinvest. Like a lot of the money that goes in is just I spend it back on those experiences. But we've cultivated a really cool group of like 13 people so far. And our vetting process is like we go through like multiple rounds of phone calls just to make sure everyone's the right culture fit.
Right.
But yeah, like the group that we have so far is incredible. And when I submitted the first application, we got like 3,000 people applying. And out of those 3,000 so far, we picked like 13.
That's great. So you guys are like investing experiences. So at the end of your life, when you retire on those memories.
Yeah. And I like how involved everyone is. Like we've met some really cool people, and one guy like
how do you go through 3,000 applicants?
3,000 applications.
Some of them are easy.
I don't want to give the secrets away for how we sort through,
okay.
but we have a method for going through them that
I love.
It's not just me, but I have a partner on
offline. I got to find out what this is.
Yeah. Listen, you're invited.
Yeah, index.
And
just tell me when you go someplace fun. Just tell me where you're going. Be like, all right,
deal.
Disneyland
Andy's
would be
a
out.
huge fan of you. So if you want to say hi to Andy.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Andy.
Cool.
Thank you guys for watching.
Till next time.